How many city staffers out there? Wow, good. Okay, lots of community. Great. So today we're going to explore how the city. Oh, we're not. That's later this afternoon. Later this afternoon, we'll be exploring how the city leverages our city assets to accelerate innovation both in industry and academia by allowing them to access roadways or parking lots and warehouses and recreation centers to test their new technology. This afternoon, we're going to really talk about the role that each of our organizations play. We're all government or arm's length government organizations. We're going to talk about how we play a role in strengthening the ecosystem here in Calgary, which is really getting a lot of attention, thanks to the four of you, to be honest. And before we get started, I do just want to talk about that we are right near the confluence of the Bow and the Elbow River. And this has been a gathering place for thousands of years where people have come together to share stories, exchange ideas, build relationships. And in this tradition of collaboration and innovation, it does continue today here at The Wave, where we unlock the power of technology to create a better, more inclusive city for all Calgarians. We want to take this moment to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral and traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, made up of Siksika, Piikani, Amaskapakani, the Kainai First Nation, the Ithaca Stoney and Nakota First Nations, which is comprised of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. Calgary is also homeland to the Métis and the Optimiskwakik Métis Government Districts 5 and 6. We acknowledge all Indigenous people who have lived and continue to live here on Treaty 7 land. The Wave Center here, we are dedicated to creating an environment where ideas can flourish and where the spirit of cooperation and creativity drives our collective progress, inspired by the enduring legacy of this land's First Peoples. Thank you. So, some housekeeping. Washrooms, you'll see some black arrows on the floor. They will take you around the corner, past the VR lab, to the washrooms. Okay? And I've got some really tinny feedback. So, we're good? Hello. Good. I had to use my radio voice. Nope. Don't stand. I won't stand over there. I will sit over. Okay, so. Yeah, sure, thanks. So what we're going to go through is I'm going to introduce you to four dynamic people making waves in our city. And if you could tell us about your role and how that adds to our ecosystem. And Derek, you've been on this wave ride for quite some time. Maybe you can start with you.
Sure thing. Really happy to be here. Thanks so much, Jason. This place looks absolutely amazing. I was here, 3 years ago. It was an idea. It was an empty space. And I couldn't see it, what it ended up being, but I could see the idea and the value proposition and everything that the Wave Tech Center is trying to do. We saw that together, and look where we are today. So still so excited about the value proposition and what this can do for the city. Yet another amazing addition to the innovation ecosystem here. It's almost hard to list all the resources now, and this is such an excellent addition with its unique, important value proposition. So really excited, Jason, for everything you've done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Team effort.
Yeah, definitely, as they always are, for sure. So I'm Derek Armstrong. I'm a director with the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund out of Calgary Economic Development. Talk a little bit about OSIF, but not too long. It's a $100 million fund. It started in 2018. Our mandate is to essentially diversify the economy of Calgary and build resilience. 6 years later, we've invested about $85 million of that into the ecosystem in a lot of different projects, 30 projects. I can get into some details there. Got a huge return on investment. Like, look where the city has come, 6 years ago to today. So just that investment has just been totally game-changing for the city. Prior to OSIF, I was at Prairie's Economic Development Canada, just down the road at Harry Hayes. So I was 5 years at Prairie's Can, so a regional federal economic development agency, and there. And I was managing a program called Regional Innovation Ecosystems. And my team and I there, we deployed more than $200 million into Calgary's innovation ecosystem. So a lot of the similar projects that OSIF has invested in, Prairie's Can as well. A lot of different things that Prairie's Can did on its own and vice versa. So just really excited about this ecosystem and where it's at. So that's me, and that's what I do.
So I want to thank Jason for the introduction, because my kids often ask me, like, what do you do anyway? And now I'm going to say I'm a dynamic person making waves, and just leave it at that. But actually what my day job is I'm the leader of the business and local economy team at the City of Calgary. And so we contribute a number of policies, programs, projects to help support the business environment throughout Calgary. And so that's everything from the Digital Service Squad, which provides free services to small businesses to help them improve their online presence, to the Support Local campaign, to trying to figure out, and I think we're going to talk about this more today, how we can help businesses that are outside of the traditional, brick and mortar, getting you open on time. What else can we do? So that's me.
Terrific. My name is Jordan Pinkster. I'm the External Relations Officer at Platform Calgary, and I'm going to put Jason's definition of brief opening remarks to the test here a little bit. I'm going to reference back to 2018, much like Derek did. 2018, Amazon starts a discussion in North America about setting up a second headquarters in North America. And Calgary emerges as a bit of a dark horse in that conversation. And the value proposition there was one major tech company, 50,000 good-paying tech jobs. How amazing would that be? Now, does anyone remember what the slogan for Calgary was in that bid conversation?
We'd fight a bear for you.
We'd fight a bear for you. So it definitely caught the attention of Amazon through that conversation. Not getting HQ2 kicked off a very different conversation in Calgary. One major company, 50,000 tech jobs. That sounds great. What about 1,000 companies at 50 employees each? What would that mean in terms of diversification in your local economy? What would that mean in terms of resilience of not being tied to a single sector or a single company? Now, we started to reverse engineer that a little bit and figure out, well, how do you build 1,000 50-person companies? Because that doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot of work that has to go into that. There's where the vision of Platform really started to come into focus. How can we surround Calgary tech entrepreneurs with the supports, the resources, the tools that they need to grow and scale tech businesses to then be 50, 100, 200-person companies that are international brands that are making a significant impact in the local economy and beyond. So at Platform, our job is to build that ecosystem, is to make sure all the supports they need at every stage of their journey are easily accessible in a single, easy-to-navigate space. Platform Innovation Center is where a lot of this activity takes place, but certainly partnering with Jason and the Wave team here about how we get more entrepreneurs involved in the problems the city's trying to solve is really central to the types of things that we're trying to work on at Platform as well.
Thank you very much. I'm going to test your brief description here because I'm going to talk both about my role and who I work for. So I'm going to talk about my role, who I work for first. My name is Stefan Zubrek. I'm a technology development advisor with Alberta Innovates. So Alberta Innovates is a crown corporation, so it's funded by provincial taxpayer dollars. And we bill ourselves as Alberta's innovation engine. So we're here to support technology and knowledge-based innovation throughout Alberta. One of the ways we do that is through local regional innovation networks, and there are 8 of them spread across Alberta. The one here in Calgary is called the Calgary Innovation Coalition. And what that is, it's not actually an organization, but it's just a grouping of the service providers who support the innovators here in Calgary. And so we are a funder of the Calgary Innovation Coalition, who then in turn funds organizations like Platform Calgary to deliver all those terrific services to early stage founders here in Calgary. There are also many other organizations that we support. You know, how many of you are familiar with VMSA, Venture Mentors, here in Alberta? Those are helping sort of some of the innovators who are a little further along. SATE is another organization that as one that receives some of our funding. So we're supporting innovators at a local level through the delivery of services by the local community, and we let the local community decide what's important to support, and they make those decisions at a grassroots level and are working directly with innovators. Maybe some of them are here today. So we're here to support technology and knowledge-based innovation. I'm part of a team called Entrepreneurial Investments, who deals with some of the early stage founders that may have progressed from their initial meetings and services received at an organization like Platform Calgary, and they're ready to, or they have probably an early stage prototype that we're ready to progress. Alberta Innovates is a funder of developing technology and knowledge-based innovation. My role as a technology development advisor is a bit of a misnomer because I'm not a tech guy at all. I'm not an engineer, but I know about this much about a million things because I deal with a lot of these early stage companies when they're ready to engage with entrepreneurial investments and Alberta Innovates. They all come to us because we have non-dilutive funding, so grant funding. But my first priority is to make sure there's a solid business case in what they're doing, that they understand that they're solving a problem that people want solved, that there's a value proposition, that they understand who their customer is. And we work on those initiatives to make sure there's a solid business case. I help connect them to other service providers within the ecosystem. So if they haven't worked with Platform yet, I'll be directing them to some of the resources at Platform as an example. And then when they're ready and when it's appropriate, we'll talk about funding to help them move their innovation forward, to help them move their business forward.
That's great.
Not too brief.
No, that's good because you kind of answer my questions, and I'm sitting down so I get in your shot better, right? Good, because I want camera time too. Derek's laughing because he knows it's true. All right, so Jordan, actually, you know, we just heard from Stefan. Stefan kind of went through those services that Alberta Innovates is offering. You have Platform is such a large this large umbrella organization for all kinds of programming. So maybe you could expand on some of those programs that are key to helping startups succeed.
Yeah, it's really a full suite of programming at every stage where our community finds themselves. So we have prospective entrepreneurs that come to us with a patent or an idea in their basement, but no idea how to actually start a business. So they can go into a class that we have called Startup 101. They can learn the very foundational basics of how you get a company started. How do you incorporate? How do you build a business case? How do you do some of that really important work that happens from there? Beyond that, we have some pre-accelerator programs that are funded by Alberta Innovates, where you get a little bit sharper. You get a little bit more into the weeds in terms of building a good product, testing your market, building a marketing plan, doing some of that work. And then the final stage in the journey in terms of the programming at Platform is our incubator program. Companies will come to us, high potential founders will come to us for a year-long curriculum where they set a stated goal at the beginning. Maybe it's, I want to raise $3 million in the next 12 months, and I need your help in order to do that. They'll come to us, they'll get access to coaches, mentors, industry connections, relationship building with investors to try to help them reach that goal. Now, I bring up the incubator for a very deliberate reason. Yesterday, we had a graduation ceremony for our second cohort of the Platform Incubator. We had 7 terrific companies that are moving on to the next level as they continue this journey. Platform is a bit of a pipeline here as well. So there are larger international incubators, whether it be 500 Global, CDL Rockies, other programs that are out there that are keeping a very close eye on the companies that are coming out of our programming to bring them in to take them to the next level and find out how they can support them from there. Platform also operates under a partnership first model. My colleague Kim is in the back of the room there. He's our partnerships manager over at Platform. We've assembled this amazing network of more than 100 partner organizations that can deliver services, opportunities, coaching and advisement to these founders. We can't be all things to all people at Platform. We don't have the expertise to do that, but we can bring in a very particular organization that is helping founders in the clean tech space figure out how to build up a technology that can serve clients in those areas. We bring in not-for-profits that are helping underrepresented communities find ways to to access the capital that everyone else is accessing at the same time as well. So really, when you walk through the doors, we might not have all the answers for you on day one, but we can certainly connect you to a program, to a service provider, to a partner that can certainly get you started in the right direction.
Great. Now, as we start to look at that ecosystem and where our teams all support each other, I think the Wave is trying to fill a gap, just like business and local economy fills that gap. Once you've gone through the incubator phases and you're ready, okay, you know what? We've been housed at platform. Now we want to do some brick and mortar, or we're deploying new technologies. We've seen companies come in that wanting to deploy new HVAC systems that don't fit our permitting, or now they're producing 3D printed concrete. How do you get building permits through that? So how does business and local economy take these innovative business ideas and adapt to what's new in business?
Sorry. Very techie. Anyway, and also I realized I didn't tell you guys who I was. My name is Erin Krusch. I said what I did, but I didn't tell them my name.
I just figured everybody knew you.
Yeah, right. Dynamic person making waves. Okay. Anyway, how the city and our team at BLE really helps that is, a really good example would be right now, there's this big conversation about the Calgary plan and the zoning bylaw and things like that. So when new regulations and things like that are being discussed and coming towards council, we can work with those teams internally to bring that particular lens, understanding that whatever we do, we want it to be flexible and adaptable, so that coming back, and I mean, there's one thing right now, I guess the complete streets policy is also part of what they're going to be discussing, and in terms of the lighting and things like that are involved in that, really being careful to not specify the types of lighting you might want, and really being able to make it open and adaptable. And so a lot of that is it's not fancy or anything like that, and it's really hard to quantify it, but it's important that as people are writing these rules and regulations, at least the ones that we are responsible for, it's making sure that they are adaptable, so that when new technology comes along that we might want to consider, it's easier. That's one less hurdle to have to go through. Other things come, working with our procurement and supply team to see how we might allow for experimentation, a lot of the kind of stuff that's happening, that will be happening here. One of the really exciting things about it, and Jason was right when he just said, in terms of the gap that it will fill, is providing that space where people with the ideas or the city, colleagues say, I have this problem and I don't know what's out there to help me, that they'll be able to come here and maybe at least narrow down what they might be looking for, and then, have that opportunity to go to market perhaps with something they'd never even thought about before. And so those are some of the ways that our team can help support what's happening here at WAVE by being that connector. Something else that happens, somewhat regularly, is Jordan will send me an email with a team, somebody who's come through their one of their programs, and do you know where can they find help? What can they do or whatever, And so now this is another resource that we can provide depending on where they're at in those stages.
And I think you really kind of talked about some of those barriers that we're seeing from these innovative companies, right? And I'm wondering, Stefan, sorry, I keep saying with a French accent that I don't have. Stefan.
There's an easy little thing to remember, but I'm not going to say it. People call me F and Stefan, right?
Okay, so Stefan, just from that higher level provincial view, what are some of those barriers that you're seeing from startups and innovative companies here in Alberta?
There's a couple of things. I can go really deep here. So always getting your first customer is hard, right? Getting your first paying customer, wanting to take the risk of trying something new. And so, a lot of the folks we're working with, they're excellent builders. They know how to code, they know how to design a robot and build a robot, or they can do a process technology to purify water, as an example. But they don't have the client relationships. And so building that skill set, first of all, to know how to engage a client is something that's really, really important. But also getting, like, as much as we're perceived as being risk takers in Alberta, it's a very conservative environment in terms of people wanting to try something new. So that's always a challenge, to get that first client. Funding is always a challenge. Money is a resource, and nobody ever has enough. And Alberta Innovates is there to help move things forward, but we never pay for it all. Okay, these startups, they need to be able to access additional funding from private sources, and that is a big challenge, especially in the pre-seed stage where clients have built something. There's indications that they're solving a problem. There's some client interest, but they need that next influx of funds to take things to the next level and perhaps get that implementation. I've got 10 clients off the top of my head that I work directly with that are in that spot right now. So that's always a challenge in terms of access to money, and having engaged, knowledgeable investors that are willing to take a risk in the tech space. Those are probably the top two.
Thank you. It's a great segue into some of the things that Wave and our Smart Cities team is trying to do here is help fill that gap. And how do we help legitimize some of the work that's being done in our tech sector? And then how do we even work to becoming the first customer? Which is government as first customer would be a huge win. It's great to have on your portfolio or on your CV. And the ways I think we're doing that is first, as you go through your development, you've got this idea, now you've got the prototype, leveraging living labs to say, hey, we developed this prototype, we tested it on City of Calgary sidewalks, or we tested it in a warehouse, or we tested it in the Wave, right? That looks great. We did this white paper on our learnings and we published it. So now you've got this exposure, you've got this credibility, you've shown that you've done some cool R&D, and that you got insurance to run it. And then the next phase we do is we support business units here in the city. So whether it's, police or fire looking to do VR training, or Calgary Parking Authority looking to better understand how people are using parking lots, we can help them do pilots. And this is, like we've called it before, we're like an auto mall, right? The Wave is like this place where the city can come test drive technology before we buy it. So if you're instead of making a $5 million purchase, maybe we're spending $20,000 or $30,000 on a small 3 or 6 month pilot. And when you're de-risking the investment, you're more likely to try a company that isn't Microsoft, or a company that is local, or a company that comes from a First Nation startup on some of our regional partners. So we're helping companies access those opportunities to become a first customer, right? And I think that's a big win for us. It's a gap that the city's had in the ecosystem, perhaps. That's a big stretch maybe, but I think we're helping fill some of those gaps. Now, Derek, we talk about the government as first customer, but we also, and you talked about a conservative investment base. So what does Calgary Economic Development do to not only to attract investment into the city, and into some of these small companies, but then even do some of that attraction of small and big players that help lift all boats?
For sure. That's a great question. I think the best tool we have inside Calgary Economic Development is the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. Having a municipal level fund for economic diversification and resilience is actually not quite common. When you look at other cities around the world, there's not that many other examples of an OSIF type fund. So the city was extremely innovative in providing a group inside CED to deploy $100 million to diversify this economy, and it was 100% warranted, as we all know. But where we are today compared to 2018 is night and day. And so OSIF has, over the last 6 years, invested into 30 projects. And so, the one-stop shop of the Platform Innovation Center, OSIF just announced some funding for the Investor Hub. Of course, we're into the Life Science Innovation Hub, the Energy Transition Center, the Aerospace Innovation Hub. So 5 years ago, the ecosystem wasn't mature enough to even have sector-specific hubs. We've gone so far to be like drilling down into some specific opportunities. There's Quantum City even now that we're looking at. There's, this hub. There's just so many opportunities for an innovator or an entrepreneur in this city, and it's extremely exciting. So that's, I think, something that is the best tool that we have, is the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. Calgary Economic Development does so many other things for the city, though. I think, we're a storyteller for the city. Of course, that attracts investment and talent and people. And look at, the record levels of migration of people coming here, record levels of VC coming here. People want to be here. And I think part of it is just telling that story and getting that word out there. We were like almost the best kept secret in Canada, but the word's getting out now, like almost too much. It's like, holy cow, how are we going to support all these people? But it's one of the most livable cities in the world. I mean, that goes a long way. It's just in my opinion, I've lived in like 4 or 5 different cities across Canada in the United States, and it's by far the best city I've ever lived in. And so we're a storyteller. We have people inside Calgary telling that story and getting that out to the world. That attracts investment. And we're also, I don't think there's anybody else in the city, I'm biased, but nobody is better connected than individuals inside Calgary Economic Development. So if you are a business looking to come to Calgary, if you are an investor looking at investing in Calgary, the first door that you knock on should be Calgary Economic Development. We have so many connections inside CED and can help you help you find the resources you need. Whatever you need, we will help you find that. Making connections and pathfinding. And there's other incentives and there's other programs even inside Calgary Economic Development. There's a talented YYC for work integrated learning. There's a trade accelerator program. There's, other incentive programs. So we are kind of the one-stop shop for economic development in Calgary.
That's great. Thank you. And you talked about, again, being able to be that clearinghouse of relationships, right? For business activation and business ideas in the city. Aaron, what are those pathways into the city that you help people navigate?
So specifically, there are, and most of these resources can all be found at calgary.ca/business, which is another clearinghouse for where people can come. And that includes actually probably most relevant. I understand this is being live streamed and everything like that afterwards, but or recorded or whatever. But there's a webinar on there that actually Jason was part of last year. Not a webinar. It was another panel presentation as part of Innovation Week, just to show how everything's connected, that Jordan hosted over a platform, and it brought a number of colleagues from the city together to talk about a number of the different specific ways that you can work with the city, specifically with tech. And, this goes back to our evolution at the city in terms of recognizing that our business community is a lot more than just the bricks and mortar. So a number of those programs that have come out of that evolution have been referenced here already. Living Labs, probably one of the most successful that we have. And now I'm going to my notes. But anyway, we have one really exciting project that just launched this past June in collaboration again with CED and with Platform and Rogers is the 5G discovery zone down here downtown. And so phase 1, the connect and test phase, it just recently wrapped up the applications for that, and we'll be announcing the successful applicants for that shortly. So that's where businesses can come and apply to test their 5G technology there's 3 themes: transportation and logistics, climate, and public safety. So they can come and test that out here. Phase 2 will be launching early in 2025. But that's something, that's, again, Canada's first test bed here. I want to just go back to something that Derek said about OSIF, because, that was the city that provided that money to get OSIF started. And a few weeks ago, Derek, he spoke about this at another conference with economic developers across Canada, and you could see everyone wanted an OSIF. Like, it was ridiculous. It's like, how can you diversify? Well, it'd be sure nice if we had an OSIF. And it's like, yeah. And how that has really jump-started everything that's happening in that sector too. So, I mean, on behalf of the city, we'll take full credit for, well, or we'll take at least a bit of it. It's what OSIP has managed. No, exactly. But you're deploying it in such an fantastic, strategic way that's really what has led to it. Had it not been, you know, chosen those different entities that you all mentioned for those investments, it could have turned out quite differently. And so I think a lot needs to be said, you know, in terms of supporting those programs and bringing that in. So besides Living Labs, you know, we can work with businesses through any stages of their development. And a lot of that is, if you do need a space for manufacturing, we have file managers now that will work one-on-one with you to make sure that your space is, I don't want to say proper, but, you know, we'll work you through that whole process, which again is a unique, innovative program that we have here in Calgary. You know, so, and that's basically where you start, right? If you want to open a business here. So a lot of them, again, I'll refer you back to the calgary.ca/business for more information on any of those.
Great. And I think what you're starting to see here, like the five of us and lots of the Smart City team here, and the CAI, the Collaboration, Analytics, and Innovation team here, we collaborate a lot, right? And we're starting to form almost like this wraparound service, right? So, you know, Derek and their team at Calgary Economic Development, okay, you're at this stage, you need to be at platform. Or they can work with a company and say, actually, you're ready to go directly to the city, or, you know, you're ready for Alberta Innovates. We're seeing each other at the same conferences. We're talking every week. We're collaborating to work together and see where we're missing gaps. I think that's something new in the last couple of years, and I think it's led to some success. And I wanted Jordan to pass it to you and just talk about what are some of those success stories that you're seeing out of platform that really are starting to become this example of what Calgary can do.
Yeah, I mean, the macro numbers are very compelling in terms of just how quickly tech has exploded in Calgary over the last number of years. We work with an organization called Startup Genome. They do global benchmarking of tech ecosystems all over the world. And Calgary has emerged as one of their fastest growing markets globally. In the last 3 years, tech has added $8.1 billion to the local economy. The 3-year period prior to that, it was around $2 billion. So almost a 240% increase in terms of the economic yield of this sector alone. And that's, again, money going right into the pockets of Calgarians. Those are exits, those are investments, those are a lot of different things that are being made through all of that. We're also seeing the volume of the number of companies in Alberta change dramatically too. Since 2012, we've increased the number of tech companies in Alberta by around 157% in just over 10 years. And more than 60% of those companies are right here in Calgary. So Calgary really is that epicenter of where the action is happening right now. A big reason for that is that there's more access to the supports that people need in order to build good companies. There's a receptiveness of local investors to want to support those founders along the way. And Calgary really is this beacon and this magnet for entrepreneurship. People that want to build something great around the world see Calgary as a place where those opportunities can be fully realized. One of the things that I find most interesting about the work that we do is some of the social enterprise, social good that comes out of the technologies that are being created from some of the founders that are at Platform. We have new Canadians that come to Platform having been in Calgary for a number of weeks in some cases that are building a technology because their integration into Canada meant that financial systems here and back home weren't communicating particularly well with each other, which led to credit rating issues, issues with them getting approved for a loan or a lease. So they're building technologies that actually solve those problems to ensure that their family, their friends, when they move here eventually, they don't encounter those same problems along the way. So it's really inspiring to see people using tech for social good through so many of those opportunities that are coming out of there as well. I'm going to do a shameless plug here for a quick second as well. Aaron referenced Innovation Week. We've got Innovation Week coming up November 13th to 21st. Last year for Innovation Week, we had about 118 events that took place over the course of the week. This is a celebration of all things tech in Calgary. These are panels, these are networking opportunities, these are education opportunities to learn about the people, the ideas behind these numbers that I just talked about right now. At the end of all of that, we celebrate the top 10 most promising startups in Calgary from the last year. Brands like Skip the Dishes, Good Lawyer have been featured in that top 10 in years past. So if you want to learn more about that, come find myself and Kim and Mike afterwards. Be happy to share some more information about Innovation Week. But this is really where we start to tell those great stories of all that success that's happening and how far we've come in a very short period of time.
Okay, that's awesome. And we're excited. Like, who's not going? Who's already signed up for Innovation Week events? Okay. Yeah, there's only like two kinds of people. There's those that are going to Innovation Week, and then those that wish they did.
And we're gonna find you if you're not signed up yet.
Yeah,
so
it's awesome. It's such a fun time and informative too. I'm supposed to say too. Okay, we have 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna open it up to some questions from the public, from the community that's here, from our friends that are visiting. So do you have any questions for our organizations that are here today? If not, I've got some more ones that are more self-serving and self-grandizing. Anyone? Kim, you had a question? Okay, so then I'll go right to my question. What advice, we'll start with you, Stefan, with a French accent again.
I get all sorts of variations every day. Just don't call me Steve.
Stefan, what advice do you have for a local startup here in Calgary?
Go to launch party. It's a really good time. You'll have a lot of fun. That's part of Innovation Week. If you are a startup here in Calgary, don't be shy. The superpower of Calgary and certainly Alberta, I'll say, is the connectivity and the willingness of everybody to help. I moved here from Toronto a long time ago, 1996, and it was night and day in terms of just coming from a city that's quite cold in terms of interacting with people to people just, everybody's willing to help you out and point you in the right direction. So don't be shy to ask. The one comment I hear all the time is, I don't know where to start. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to start something, and I don't know where to start. Take that first step. Just ask one person, and that one person will likely point you to somebody else. You might be one or two connections away from getting in front of the person you really need to talk to. Don't be shy. Reach out. Everybody's here to help. That connectivity is the superpower here in Calgary.
Jordan, I'll ask you the same question. I'm going to try a different mic.
It's a very similar vein. Ask for help. You don't have to do this by yourself. Being an entrepreneur is really hard. It's really intimidating. It requires a lot of personal, financial sacrifices along the way. There is a growing network of supports that can help you throughout that journey. To further Stefan's point, what's so unique about Calgary is this is a city that gives back and supports. We have founders that are coming to us having started their journey in larger cities, in Toronto and Vancouver. They land here and they say, like, people actually want to help me here. Like, people will introduce me to somebody else and not just brush me off because I'm a nuisance or I'm causing them problems through all of that. That's so ingrained in our DNA here in Calgary that our business leaders, our business community, our civic leaders, they want to give back. They've found a pathway to success here in this city, and they want to make sure other people have that exact same opportunity. So if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, ask for help. Come stop by Platform Calgary, grab a cup of coffee at the cafe, ask for myself or Kim or someone on the team. We'd love to point you in the right direction and get you started because you're not on your own. There is a whole community that wants to help you be successful.
So I actually had this happen a couple months ago where my husband was walking our dog and ran into the neighbor, and their son-in-law was starting on a venture and, wasn't sure, needed some advice. And my husband, you guys thought I was kidding when my kids asked me what I keep doing. He goes, well, I think that might have something to do with Erin's job. Here's her number. And so he called me a few days later and said, this is the idea that I have. It was an app of some sorts in the healthcare field. And I said, okay, from what it sounds like, have you heard of Platform? And he said, no. I said, well, that's where you need to go first, because from the stage, what you're describing me, if like they'll be able to help you there. And so kind of going on that theme that is has been identified here is that not only do people want to help, but I think they really genuinely want you to succeed. There's not a lot of that, there's probably some, but which is natural, that healthy competition, but it's a healthy competition. It's a healthy kind of drive to try to push each other and really want you to succeed, because as we've learned here, people talk about oil and gas being traditional, but a lot of what spurred that growth was really, the oil sands, the innovation that came out of that and everything like that. We've already experienced what it's like when people come together with a new idea and kind of rally around that. And now it's lots of different ideas, but that mentality that one person's success or one success is everybody's success, I think is quite ingrained in here. So that's the advice that I'd give them.
Yeah, not much else to add. I mean, it's on the same trend. I think, you definitely have to ask for help if you're an entrepreneur or a leader or anything. It's not just entrepreneurs. I think asking for help in this community is something everyone needs to do and should do, because people here are a lot more willing to help. But I would say also, it's give and take. I think you also have to show that you're willing to give back as well, even if you're not fully established and exited and high net worth individual at this point and you're giving back. I actually think you need to give back even at an early stage and show that you are there to collaborate and to help others as well, because then people will be more willing to help you. So I think it's a two-way street there. But yeah, I come from, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, United States, and I came here and I was like, holy, this is a small town and I love it. People here are just so much more friendly and open and willing to collaborate. So I do love that aspect of Calgary for sure. And yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice is for people is to really get out there and network. I don't think everyone loves networking. I didn't. Now I do. I'm like all over the place, as you know, Jason, but I hated it. And also something we have to keep in mind that, when we say how inclusive Calgary is and how open-minded we are and how everyone, can has the same opportunities, I don't actually think that that's necessarily true. I actually was just on a panel over at the ATB Entrepreneurial Center, and it was for newcomers, and I think that there are certain barriers, and that's normal. It's not a Calgary thing. I actually think Calgary is like way ahead of the game in that respect compared to a lot of other cities, but I still think, like me up here as a white man saying these things and saying like, oh, it's so inclusive, it's such a small town, everyone's willing to talk to me. Like, yeah, I'm a white man and I have money because I work for OSIF, so people are willing to talk to me. But I have to always remember, and I think we should always remember, that our journey and story is not the same for everybody. So I just always like to preface that. But we are so far ahead of the game based on my experience, and Calgary is just the place to be.
That's awesome. Great. And I want to thank you all a lot. And I'm going to do that more once we're off the mics, because I don't want to eat into our next presentation that already has people waiting online. So thank you all very much. I'm sure some of you are kicking around. And so if you have questions that you want to ask, go ahead. And we'll see you all at Innovation Week. All right. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. We're going to move on to our next thing this afternoon. My name is Ann Galbraith, and I'm a PM with the Smart Cities team. And one of my jobs is working with different groups that are trying to do living labs. Yes. Yeah. I'm just waiting for Jason to turn up the volume. Okay. Hopefully. Okay. So I'm excited to be the host for this afternoon and introduce you guys to some of our city's innovators. We just heard a great panel talking about innovation within the city. So today, this afternoon, we're going to be talking to some of the people that are doing innovation within the city. As mentioned, Calgary has one of the fastest growing tech sectors in North America. And we want to make sure that we are enabling and supporting those businesses as they grow. And so that means enabling experimentation, because without experimentation, we could also have one of the fastest crashing tech sectors, because the cost of actually fixing things after implementation is significantly higher. So we want to make sure that people have the opportunity to test in real-world environments as opposed to controlled environments, because that will save costs for them and set them up for success, and it also allows us to be part of the process. So Living Labs, woo, that's bright. Okay, my retina wasn't quite ready for that. So Living Labs is a part of the Smart Cities strategy. It sits within experimentation, so we have 4 different pillars. There's partnerships and collaboration, experimentation, digital equity, and storytelling. And one of the areas that you're sitting right in right now is that WAVE Tech Center that supports experimentation, and that's focused on experimentation within the city. But then the Living Labs area is about focusing on experimentation, focusing on businesses and academia and researchers outside of the city who want to also do testing. And we enable them by helping them access city infrastructure. So the City of Calgary's Living Labs overall is a facilitates access to city-owned assets for companies and researchers to test new products and ideas in real-world environments. And real-world environments is kind of important, because if you only test in like a controlled lab, you can't really anticipate certain things that might happen outside of that lab. And so a lot of people that come to us may not be quite ready to go out to market, but they need a slightly less controlled environment to start testing the bounds of what their product can do before they start selling. So that's something that we want to be available and able to help people with. So since 2009, when the program started, we've supported 190 different companies in different ways. 115 Living Labs projects have been spun out of that. There's been about a 5% increase year over year in the Living Labs program and requests, and a 23% year over year increase in the use of the East Shepherd drone site, which we can talk about a little bit. And that's a site of industrial land that has been opened up for autonomous drones and autonomous testing and drones and things like that. So this year alone, because we are quite busy, there's been over 40 organizations that we've supported. Right now, last count, I think I've got over 100 different collaborators internally and externally that have been working together to put some of these Living Labs together. And we have opened up this year about 67,000 square meters of city infrastructure for testing, and logged over 4,000 hours at least of testing hours. And so some of the assets that we might be using for testing include industrial land, so that's something that's being used for drone flights. Roadways, there was a roadway that was used, for example, between the zoo and the Science Center for testing a autonomous shuttle, which is right up there. That was the first one in North America, the first test of the sorts. Warehouses, we've been using warehouses for different types of things, and we'll hear about one of them today. For indoor positioning, asset tracking. Dark fiber is something that we have, so we use that for things like fiber as a sensor type testing. We have a massive LoRaWAN network that can be used. Another one that we're using is the waste management sites for air quality sensing. And then we might use parks, open spaces, recreation fields, and one of those that we'll also be hearing about today is someone's using that for active noise canceling technology testing. And so if you want to learn more about what you can do, you can go to calgary.ca, Living Labs, and reach out to us, and we'll be able to help you figure out if your project or test is a fit. So today, because it's not really about me, this is about all the folks that have been doing the innovation within the city. Today we're going to be talking to a few of our Living Labs in action and innovators from within the city. So we'll be starting with Zero Sound, who does active noise canceling, Arium Analytics, who does all sorts of stuff to do with drone technology, Trusted Positioning, our TDK, that looks at positioning type technology, and C, the Center of Innovation and Research in Unmanned Systems. And that was the term I was looking for, unmanned systems, earlier. And so, without further ado, I will invite up the folks from Zero Sound to have a conversation. I'm just going
Thanks, Anne, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Norm Bogner, CEO and co-founder of Zero Sound, Calgary-based. Founded in 2019 and been active developing what we'll get into here in terms of industrial noise suppression. We've got a little bit of feedback. See, the Zero Sound is there. It is. It's already working. So, at Zero Sound, we constantly use this term here, and we reference it all the time. Noise is this century's secondhand smoke, and so it's our mission to rid the world of the dangerous noise pollution produced by industry and urban life. I'll just stop. Yes. Okay, we can try that out. Right, there we go. All good, assuming you can still hear me. So basically, what I'll just walk through today about Zero Sound, what we do, why we do it, and our fit with the Calgary ecosystem, lessons learned, and living labs. And we've had a great experience with living labs so far. Andrew Sador was one of our early contacts at the city who's helped us walk through the living labs experience, and we use it literally on a daily basis for a lot of our testing. And so also thanks to Anne and her team for supporting us on the living labs side of things. So a little bit, what are we doing? Active noise control for industry, what does that mean? We're all familiar with your earbuds and noise canceling headphones. That's where one sound wave meets another sound wave, they meet and noise is suppressed. That's very easy to do inside your head where things don't change very much and the suppression zone is pint size. What we do is at an industrial scale, real time, without the earbuds. So this is where we say, think of earbuds for industry, but without the earbuds. So we create virtual suppression zones, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Won't get too deep into the technology, but this is something no one is doing globally. Founded here, multiple patents. It's a software-enabled hardware, and again, this is not being done anywhere globally. So it's a real launch pad for what we're doing here. The impacts and the impacts of noise pollution, health, community, social, and environmental. The impacts of noise, back to the secondhand smoke reference, it is a major health impact. Air or noise pollution is actually part of the Air Pollution Act, so it is recognized as pollution. Cardiac issues, mental stress, let alone from the hearing and quality of life perspective, also the impacts to the environment, migration patterns and otherwise. So it's a very meaningful impact, but it's always the last thing that's thought of, and typically it's a Band-Aid solution. So for industry and those that are going to be leveraging what we're working on, operational disruption, lost revenue, that severe impacts in a number of different industries, and I'll get to those in a moment. Fines, penalties, legal issues, remediation, insurance, and a host of other ESG issues that we can address. So what we can do is track, manage, and measure the noise pollution before, how we've suppressed it, and report out on that for companies to support their ESG objectives. And so this is just a quick video, and I'll set it up here. This is, this is specific to the utilities use case, where substation noise is a low constant hum. We don't notice it when we're driving by or doing anything, but in the evenings and otherwise, it's a constant annoyance, and it's more so than an annoyance. It's regulated, and if substations are offside on this, we have one client that could face a $10 million fine for one instance of it. So there's that low hum, and what we do here, and you'll see, is we create virtual suppression zones. And so this is a substation example and I'll just walk you through the, all right. So normally they're, all good.
Turn the mic off for a second.
So what you'll see here, I'll just back this up. All right, no worries.
We're a beta space, right?
That's right. All good.
We're just like, we've been in here for less than a
Second
week,
time
so we're
around,
just learning.
and all good. So again, so this is an industry or substation use case. Community nearby, normally you would try and have a sound wall or otherwise with the impacts or reducing the impacts, but that doesn't work. They've tried to put trees in between, and otherwise this just isn't a solution. So in the lower part, you'll see these little blue squares. Those are our panels, and what we do is create a virtual suppression zone. We measure the noise coming in, and we create a broad suppression area without needing to build a wall. So there to the right would be a wall, and what we have here, this is a deployment at a substation in Chile, where we just have a few of our panels replacing an incredibly, their alternative was going to be a 60-foot tall wall, 60 feet tall, around the entire substation. And so what they did is implemented us instead, saved them millions of dollars, and what we're doing is virtually protecting those residents around them. It works, it's past their regulatory body and otherwise. So it's a very innovative solution to a problem that is, look, we all know, it's a wall. Is this better? Well, it's off.
Yeah. Once your video's done, I think let's try firing the mic back up. Give it a try.
We're back. We're back. And yeah, there we go. Okay. So traditional noise solutions, it's a wall, right? That hasn't been innovated much. Generally, you put more stuff in between the thing making noise and where you want to protect. So cumbersome, unintelligent, incremental, where from a zero sound perspective, elegant, intelligent, and disruptive. Here's an image of our panel, which is a 2-foot by 2-foot piece of hardware. Again, it's a software-enabled hardware, ruggedized for outdoor industrial use. Ease of installation, you don't need special equipment or otherwise. And as I mentioned, noise. Also an ESG improver.
This is why I got kicked off the KISS tour. Okay. Yep.
Well, we'll keep trying. So the opportunity markets, and then we'll get into some of the elements that we're doing with living labs. Emerging markets, again, we're a horizontal solution to every industry's problem. If you have a noisy piece of equipment, it doesn't matter what your industry is. Data center ports, we're just kicking off the Port of Montreal project that organized through Industry or Transport Canada to reduce some of their issues, construction, traffic noise barriers, equipment shrouds, you name it, defense applications and otherwise. We've already made window screens that are breathable, but you can also reduce the sound that's coming in. Another giant leap for any urban market. Future applications and sirens that protect first responders. So what we can do is reduce the siren noise inside the cab for the first responders without impacting the external siren issues. Tens of millions of dollars of lawsuits on that long-term exposure from siren noise to our first responders. So it's just another, it re-emphasizes the fact that there's just so many elements to tackle. So what you need is focus. And so our focus here from the utility perspective, as I mentioned, we're deployed in Latin America, specifically in Chile, and working with local and North American clients on substation noise suppression. So that is a global opportunity. And where this relates to the Living Lab support is we had key support from NMAX and ongoing testing for our product refinement here in Calgary for the utilities use case. And we are commercial. So we're beyond startup, we're scale up, and these are the areas where we're scaling up significantly. Energy and extraction, of course, we're here in Alberta. From a upstream perspective, fracking and drilling, and also midstream for pipelines, compressor stations, and otherwise that impact communities. And when these guys are offside, that's hundreds of thousands or $1 million a day if they get shut down. So we're leveraging Living Labs also for our infrastructure, for that infrastructure testing, and data centers. Data centers' number one issue to the community is noise. They're power hungry. And with AI and everything that's going on, it's exploding in terms of the need. They just, Microsoft just signed a power purchase agreement at 3 Mile Island, the nuclear facility in the States, a 20-year power purchase agreement just to power their data centers locally. So it's a huge issue, and the number one issue, New York Times just did an article on it, Time Magazine did a feature article on it. It's the sound from all of the HVAC and cooling. That's their number one problem. So that is something we'll continue to leverage with Living Labs, and again, as I mentioned, scalable global opportunities, but we can validate and refine this locally. And Ann had mentioned or asked, some of the learnings and what's next. As I mentioned, we can explore multiple use cases here and leverage the infrastructure in real world scenarios. So for those that haven't been involved or using Living Labs, it's testing and the real world scenario without the pressure of being on site with the client. No matter what you say when you're testing with a client, they will be hovering over you and saying, well, how come, why isn't this, why didn't that work? And this is just a much easier step and a transition. And it's great exposure from our perspective. Even this, I mentioned the water main repair, the issue that we all went through in the summer, just through the contacts and Living Labs, they reached out to us to try and help mitigate some of the construction noise. That was tight timing, we weren't able to do it, but the point is, we're known. And so that's another great element from a Living Labs perspective. So what's next for Zero Sound? We're direct integration. We've got global OEMs, original equipment manufacturers from HVAC to transformers and otherwise reaching out to us from a local organization perspective, international partners and governments already in motion. So this is a very exciting time for us, and we need the infrastructure back to execute and deliver on all of this. We need to improve our people, product, and process, and we can do that with the support of Living Labs and then the Wave Tech Center as well. I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's go.
It grows. The suppression zone grows the further out you get from it, both horizontally and vertically. And so how far does it go? It works until that noise catches up with ambient. So if your ambient noise because of traffic or otherwise, it's noticeable more than a kilometer away, but the closer impact, that hundreds of meters, is that typical range. And then noise naturally attenuates and goes back to whatever the ambient noise is. So does that answer?
So that would make it applicable from like a 3D printer that's printing in concrete, like a big robot, from robot activity to a cowboy's tent at Stampede.
Right, and that's where outdoor concert venue is another great application where you can focus the music and otherwise, but then there's things that we can do, and we're in with the Cowboys group and looking at that new park as well to integrate what we can do so it's not such a big impact on the community. It's the lower bass, the lower frequency noise. Those sound waves are longer. That's where they just hop over walls or even through walls. And that's, we can all hear the thud, thud, thud. And you're never gonna get away from it, but you can mitigate it and then focus your sound systems better to be more community friendly. Let's put it that way.
Data centers and music festivals, you picked the right city.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I was just going to ask, is this something that could be used to
The amount of pickleball, we get that constantly online. It's like, because it drives people insane, right? And so yes is the short answer. And so it's then a matter of where is the low-hanging fruit from us, from a corporate perspective, where we can scale. We make one sale and it's hundreds of units, or one sale to one. So yes is the short answer, absolutely. Consumer indoor and otherwise, that's also on the come, but it's just right now, doing it outdoors where you compensate wind, temperature, pressure, we're the only ones doing it. And that's the low-hanging fruit for us, but yes.
So normal chat, but there was a question over here. Sandra had a question.
Is it patented?
Yes, multiple patents. So we're software-enabled hardware, so multiple patents around that, and then the black box with our algorithms is also, well, we don't patent that because we'd have to publish it. But yes, multiple patents.
And the secondary question is, what range of low to high frequency do you suppress or manage?
Very good question. So, and again, this is all real time, and we focus on the problem equipment noise frequencies, typically from 80 hertz to 2000. Beyond, when you get higher, noise naturally attenuates, so we don't focus on that. And again, that's the lion's share of where the problems are. A generator is a generator, a compressor, and otherwise. These things are in that wheelhouse, and again, we do that real time. And we integrate reinforcement learning, so AI, machine learning, reinforcement learning, and we're active with Amy out of Edmonton on a key project, making us even smarter and better and more adaptable plug and play.
And doing that all here in Calgary.
All out of Calgary. And manufacturing assembly also here in Calgary.
Thank you. I wanted to invite Jordan up from Arium Analytics to talk about the work they've been doing here in Calgary. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for being the guinea pig up here. Really appreciate that. Hopefully this one goes a little smoother. Again, my name is Jordan Sikoria. I'm President CEO of Arium Analytics. Really what we focus on is drone innovation, and some pretty interesting drone innovation that we're doing right here in Calgary. So this is our focus. This is who we are as a company. We're disrupting traditional wildlife management. We're looking at different ways to decrease negative human-bird interactions and beyond. And we're doing that not just anywhere. We do that at airports. We do this in energy settings. We're starting to move into agriculture. And this is something that has been, well, we've been working with Living Labs in the city of Calgary basically since we started back in 2017. So it's been a pretty fun evolution the entire way through. So again, just a little bit about us. You know, we've been 8 years for a company as Arium Analytics. We've actually, my family's been in business in Calgary since 1982, so I'm second generation. So moving into the tech space was kind of fun to actually do the same thing the city was moving into at the same time as well. A lot of this is, the flight piece is really interesting and fascinating because, again, we do operations all over the world, mainly here in Canada, but when we talk about that many flights, most of those are actually done in the airport settings. Like we have over 7,000 flights just in airports alone, which makes us one of the foremost operator integrators of technology with drones, which everyone goes, wait a minute, drones and airports don't mix. We all know that. We've been able to be one of the foremost leaders of that space for a really long time. Multiple industries that we're in, obviously airports being the one we just talked about. A lot of work we do up in the oil sands and in northeastern Alberta, really trying to help support what's going on with some of our larger projects up there. Our solutions predominantly, and what we'll be talking about today is Robert, which will, for those who haven't seen it before, is what we'll focus on mainly, but we are a data technology at heart too. So we look at geospatial intelligence. We're looking at how to leverage this to make more informed decisions and where to apply drone-based technologies for the most impact as possible. And again, what sets us apart? Well, we're doing it in spaces that others can't right now, or that we're paving the way to help make that integration more important. We started with safety first, and I know everyone kind of says that in these industries, but it's true. When we moved from energy into airports, it was the operations managers are like, well, no, this is an airport. You can't be doing that. You need to have a safety management system. Okay, here you go. You need to have this. Here you go. And then after that, it was like, wow, you really came prepared, and that has really helped us move into some pretty innovative spaces as we go. We focus in two different areas. We obviously started as a service business. We're moving into building out robotic technologies to help us move forward, but really on wildlife and habitat support, what we're talking about is examples would be bird strikes at airports. We're talking about bird landings and tailings ponds, something that we all are very aware of, but has a serious impact on wildlife. And things like crop loss. And when we're looking at food scarcity, it's actually impressive to see how much food loss is directly related to birds all over the world. It ends up being in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. So what we really aim for in that habitat and wildlife support is detection, technology integration, habitat management, and conservation support. And then obviously the regulatory space, we can't do any of this without knowing how to navigate that world. But what we're really here for today is Robird. Robird is technology that we manufacture, produce, and do R&D here in Calgary. It is a flapping wing drone. It looks like a peregrine falcon. It flies like a peregrine falcon, no propellers. And the impressive part about this is, as soon as it's far enough away from you, it's really hard to distinguish from an actual bird. And that's what its benefit is in biomimicry. So we're really looking at how birds of prey hunt, how they chase, and leveraging that flight aspect and that flight ratio in order to scare birds away further, keep them away longer, and decrease that risk to humans, to our food sources, and to themselves as well. Ornithopter is the word for flapping wing technology, just in case anyone wasn't sure. And we really want to emphasize this. It is a humane approach to bird control. Why it's humane is, number one, it ties into their natural fight or flight responses. Number two, live falconry generally leads to a kill, which means that there are deaths related to it. The ag space has different techniques that are called depredation, which is again a polite way to say killing. So when we're leveraging this, the whole idea is to displace, to move to safer locations, remove them from harm's way for both humans and for themselves without having a long-term negative effect. I'll leave the milestones for now because we'll actually get into that in a little bit here. But this is some of the statistics that we've been able to see with our partners. I mean, we've been able to successfully reduce bird strike incidents at airports by 77%. The other piece that was interesting getting into the airport space is, unless you're in that airport space, you don't actually realize how common of an issue this is. Every single one of us who's ever been on a plane has likely had some sort of interaction with a bird hitting an aircraft. We probably just didn't know about it. The most famous one, of course, would be the Miracle on the Hudson, as a lot of people have seen, and there's a movie about, which was about geese ingestion into an aircraft that then had to land on a river. Fortunately, there was no deaths in that one, but that was a serious incident. So having these sorts of tools that are being built in Calgary and in Canada is really, really important. On the mortality sides in oil sands, we've been able to help our partners reduce any sort of mortalities by up to 75%, which again is a fantastic number, because as we go through energy transition, as we continue to evolve, our partners want to maintain that highest level of environmental standard as possible, and they're looking at new technologies like this to help support it. Shift over a little bit here and look at our journey in Calgary's emerging tech sector. Again, when we started back in 2016, 2017, there was a lot of conversation about Calgary being a one industry city. It was oil and gas, oil and gas, oil and gas, oil and gas. And we were part of that too. And when we started in the tech space, there was a serious commitment and desire to look at how we bring technology in. I mean, we had a fantastic GIS and geospatial world that we didn't even realize we had, which ended up becoming the basis of what is our tech sector today. And now Calgary, especially in the drone space, it's really interesting, but we're becoming a massive hub for drone technology. We have some fantastic companies that are building some amazing technologies right here in our own backyard. Ours being one of them, radar detect and avoid systems for full airspace integration. We have a lot of companies such as Arcfield, who are actually doing counter UAS and how to prevent the bad drones from impacting what we're doing. And that's all in this ecosystem that is all around the city. I mean, SATE is one of the foremost in that realm too, and they'll be talking in a little bit about what they're doing in that space. In the tech sector, it's been really fun to be able to collaborate with local innovators, with local industries. There's so much going on in our own backyard that spaces like what we have here today and what's going on all over the city is critically important, because unless we are able to put our head up for a minute and go, holy cow, that's amazing, I had no idea. We never get these chances to integrate. And so for those just starting in the industry, but versus those who have been here for a while, that is so critically important to the building of the ecosystem and movement forward from there. Because of our oil and gas background in the city and that environmental stewardship that we have, it's become a really key location for helping drive our change in the wildlife monitoring and protection. Birds, bird mitigation, animal mitigation, protectionism, there's a lot of that goes on in our industries here in Calgary, and that allows us to help drive and be a change for good in the world on environmental forefront all over the place. The other interesting part, again, in that drone sector, we're preparing for that change. We have a big pivot in the drone space that's happening in 2025, and that's beyond visual line of sight. For anyone who knows drones, that is considered the holy grail. To me, it's just a stepping stone towards autonomy, which is what we need for Robert eventually. But it is such a massive step that it's going to be changing the entire ecosystem of how this technology moves into oil and gas, into transmission, into agriculture, and how we move it into the national airspace. So Calgary and Alberta are poised to be at the forefront of that as we kind of move forward. The rest are really kind of integrated into that, but the emerging tech sector in Calgary has been, I mean, we've seen some incredible tech already today. We're going to continue to do that. The innovation that we have here in the city is fantastic, and it's really setting us up, and the city's done a fantastic job helping build these spaces, helping bring us forward. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Living Labs experience now. For us, and it was kind of mentioned earlier, it's all about the drone testing space. I mean, fortunately, while we're testing, we're able to get a lot done. So here's some stats for us just from this year. We went through our numbers, and I was actually surprised. So we visited the drone testing site over 70 times this year, and over 700 flights in those tests. So when we're rapid prototyping, we're making change. The ability to have a space like that we don't have to get out of the city for, just you think about cycle times alone to go and make those changes and whatnot, it's been incredibly beneficial for us, and it has helped a ton. For us, again, it's provided this dynamic environment. It's really helping us with quick iteration, testing new ideas, gathering insights, and that continuous improvement for us. Again, we have a device that requires a lot of space, and in order to fly Robird, you need at least a football field, soccer field size, if not bigger. Everyone always asks, like, "What, can we fly it around here?" The answer is no, it smashed right into a wall as soon as I launched it. But that's because of how it works and what its intent and purpose is. So this has been super helpful for us. Just a few photos, and I'm actually going to share a video, which picture's worth 1,000 words, and a video's worth 1,000,000 for Robird. So this is the actual testing facility. This is some of the actual practice and test flights. This is our test pilot, Brandon Thomas, who spends a lot of time out there. And so as you can see, it's a hand-launched technology. So he'll get set up here in a second. You'll start to see it flap at full speed. We're working on some advancements to automate this, which I'll get into later in the presentation. But once it's just a few feet away, it starts to become really hard to distinguish from an actual flying bird. So this is why this technology works so well in deterring birds from nesting, in preventing them from being in dangerous areas, is because it is absolutely dialing into that fight or flight response that they have. It's a glide mode landing, so for anyone who's not aware, that's a belly land. It just basically the wings lock up and we bring it in from that side. So what we've learned being part of the tech space and in our journey over the last few years is that power of consistency and that power of consistent testing. Our teams are always tweaking, they're always iterating, they're always making that continuous change. And so again, like I was saying, those cycle times are important for us. Minimum viable product, everyone talks about that, but it's so true. It's how do you simplify it? How do you keep it easy and simple? How do you get it to market as quick as you can? We can spend hours, if not days, if not weeks, ruminating on the future of where we're going with this, but if you don't have your product in the market and you don't have satisfied clients, then you might as well not even get out of the starting gate. That's so critical in any ecosystem that we're working in. And as we talked about, you know, that innovative network has been incredible. I know we're one of many hundreds of technologies that are being built right here in Calgary. And that's, as a born and raised Calgarian, that makes me really proud. So it's cool, great to see what is happening. It's great to see these new centers coming online all the time. A little bit about what's next. So in our big, hairy, audacious goal, we want Rober to be completely autonomous. So this is a system that's fully integrated, has automated launch and landing, integrated with radar, optical, machine learning, and AI. It basically flies itself, and it chases birds away. So everyone always worries, is like, wait, what about Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds? Now we have an autonomous one that's going to get us. Not quite the same. There's a lot more control that kind of goes into that. But as we look at this, the other piece everyone always asks is, why did we choose a peregrine falcon? Well, it's the most feared aerial predator in the world, and it's known on 6 of 7 continents. So when you look at how do you get market penetration without having to make a lot of change, well, one product works. Fortunately, we're also mimicking real life biology and in the environment, so that makes it a lot easier. So thanks to where we've been today, thanks to our partners in testing at Edmonton Airport, up to Imperial Oil, and now we're moving into geographical regions in Peru and Australia. It's giving us more that we need to work on and test and iterate, and that becomes a really big part of where we go from here. That's about all I have for today. So I guess questions? Yeah.
Product and technology patented?
Yes, parts of it are patented, absolutely. And then other parts of it we've kept as more intellectual property protections and using things such as end user licensing agreements and other ways to have market secrets. And the reason why is the same. Once you patent something, it becomes part of the public domain. There's always worry and concern on that side. So we've patented those that would be obvious to be able to replicate, predominantly the wings, because this is an incredibly unique way of flying. And it's actually created a new form of propulsion and lift due to the curvatures and how the wings are set up. So we've put a lot of protection around that technology. We're constantly iterating on the internal mechanisms, on the software stack. So that's the interesting piece on this too, is you not only have a software play, you have a machine learning AI play, and then you also have a mechanical play all integrating into a single system. So yes, we do use patenting, but selectively.
And the bird is incredibly robust. Like I remember in 2018, the mayor threw it into the ground. The mayor at that time threw it into the ground, and she got up and kept flying.
Yep, yeah, and that, we actually designed it to be like that for industrial settings, right? Because the last thing you need is to have a crack in a wing and go, oh, sorry, I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Tons of media around, and the bird went right into the ground.
Yeah, that was, we've improved that takeoff system since then, but.
That might have been user error at that point.
Wow.
But that's awesome.
Nowadays, it's actually, the ease of flying has improved so much. Our biggest enhancement lately has been our glide mode to land it has been a unique transitioning system, and our team has literally created a way to do that it's basically unflippable now, which has been impressive to help reduce, decrease the amount of complexity to be a pilot to fly it, and increase the robustness of it.
Has it been hard to find staff because you're leading a lot of areas that is not just readily available?
No. Honestly, the interesting part and the fortunate part about what we're doing is because we're solving real life problems and we have a unique technology, we get a lot of people who want to work with us, and we've been very fortunate on Now we have leading machine learning experts, we have computer vision experts, we have mechatronics engineers, we have marketing product owners, everything that you would look at. But anytime we do a call for staff, we've been fortunate in the fact that everyone's like, that's really cool and I would love to be part of that team. No, go ahead.
Do you also utilize satellite technology to be able to navigate the drones?
Yeah, we integrate with GPS. So that's one of our fundamental safety features. That's one of our fundamental integration pieces. We don't do a lot of operation right now autonomously that way because we could program this to fly in a lawnmower pattern, but all the birds would look at it and go, what's wrong with that thing? It's drunk. So we're actually working on how to leverage not only GPS, but autonomy in the eyes. Camera's going to be replacing the plastic eyes that we have, and that's going to help support how the operations and the flights work on that.
So currently is it both remote and AI working the flight, or is it just AI?
Right now it's just remote, remotely piloted. The AI piece is moving. This is where the regulation piece comes in. Transport Canada rules state you must have a pilot in the mix at all times. So those changes that are occurring, we're getting prepared for. So you could do what we call scripted flight rather than AI-based flight, and then you can do piloted flight, which is where you get the most effect, because for our pilots, you're one part drone operator, you're one part birder. You need to understand how birds think, where they roost, and so biology meets technology is a unique integration point that we have.
Is different kinds of robot birds, or just one base kind?
Right now, just the peregrine falcon. In the hopper, we have a bald eagle model that we're working on. We're looking at a sea eagle for down in places like Australia, but as you get to a 6 or 7 foot wingspan, your physics changes substantially. So that's been one of the biggest challenges to date. But so far, fortunately, most flocking birds and most high-risk birds have been predated on by peregrine falcons in the past. So it's been an easy integration.
Great.
Are we still good, or? Yes. And bald eagles attack it too. Bald eagles do not like us, which fortunately means that it's working. If you have a predator taking you, or an apex bird trying to get you out of their space, that to us is a badge of we're doing something right. Hawks as well, but again, we've learned techniques to prevent that from happening, but bald eagles will just take you right out. It's hard to avoid. So I think that's it for now. Okay, thank you very much.
We're going to get started on the second half of introducing everybody to some of our innovators within the city that have also been using the Living Labs program. I'm excited to introduce to you Kyle from TDK, Trusted Positioning Inc., who've been doing Living Lab with us over the past year. And I'm excited to get them to come in and talk a little bit about the work that they're doing here in Calgary and through experimentation. And I'll give it over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Anne. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle Chow from TDK, or Trusted Positioning Inc. It's a TDK company. I am a quality manager there. So let me just go back to our history. So Trusted Positioning Inc. started off as a lot of PhD students from the University of Calgary. So however big we've gotten or joined other companies, our roots are really Calgary-based. So this is our tech, Calgary is home. So we started off with MEMS research at the University of Calgary. What are MEMS? They are microelectronic mechanical systems. So that's devices that are readily available in practically everything. Your phones that you have, headphones, in your vehicles, your cars. We've really just focused on IMUs, which is inertial measurement systems, which is really just the accelerometer and gyroscope. In 2009, the Trusted Positioning Inc. startup was founded by those PhD graduates from the University of Calgary. And then from there, in 2014, Trusted Positioning was bought out or acquired by InventSense. Spirit Navigation is another company, a startup that kind of combined with InventSense as well. And then in 2017, InventSense was acquired by TDK. And then now in 2020, there was a big focus for TDK to focus on software. So the Calgary office is a software-based office for a international global hardware company. So all of this stems from our software, but and Calgary is home to us. So of course we are working with Calgary. Let's see what's next. All right, so from the MEMS sensor PhD student studies, what is the core of everything we do? Everything in blue is essentially our core technology. From the bottom, map constraints, INS, dynamics constraints. INS is the inertial navigation systems. So that is GPS plus IMU, so gyroscope and accelerometer. Everything in red is supporting sensors. So that's GNSS. Other people know it in North America as GPS. There's Wi-Fi sensors, Bluetooth sensors, perception sensors such as camera, LiDAR, radar, and then geomagnetic, which is the magnetic field, or the compass on your phone. So we are the software-based company that essentially combines everything as sensor fusion to make it scalable, cost-effective, hardware agnostic. So we can use any sort of hardware, no custom hardware at all. If I really wanted to, I could grab one of your phones in your pocket, install software on it, and you could try out our system. So that brings us to flexibility, open platforms, and of course, specialized expertise. Coming back from 2009 from the PhD studies, this has been our bread and butter for over 20 plus years. So then for positioning software, how we do all that sensor fusion to find or to bring over into our positioning software essentially just answers, where are we? So then there could be outdoor positioning or indoor positioning. So the outdoor positioning could have automotive, or robotic, it goes all the way into all these other industries. Indoor positioning as well for construction, healthcare, and then smart factories. Retail and entertainment as well. Only caveat right now is that we don't support aerial or marine applications. So really, you can see that the core of our technology really is flexible enough to go into so many segments of industry, for whether it be existing now or even upcoming in the future. The ones that might pique everyone's interest is like the autonomous vehicles. We're still probably years out away from that. Micro-mobility is essentially just the last mile problem, which is why you've seen Calgary expand with so many scooters around the city in the last couple of years. Indoor positioning would be the factories, wearables, would be smartwatches, sport and fitness, and then of course automotive would be items such as like infotainment systems. You have Android Auto or your iOS navigation in your car. That would be industries that we do touch base on. So from our core technology, we've really branched out into 4 different product spaces. First one is auto, which is inertial plus perception-based positioning. This is mainly for robots and then going into autonomous vehicles. Venue is our real-time indoor positioning software. Track is for initial aided positioning that's always on, enhanced vehicle navigation. And then for ride, that is for the micro-mobility platforms, such as scooters. So I guess the main difference that we can summarize between auto and track is accuracy level. Auto would be a high accuracy positioning solution, while track is for the general lower accuracy requirements. So kind of let's start off. Track is essentially our aided software, which has practically been rolled out in over 50 million mobile devices and embedded devices. Fleet tracking, navigation head units, GNSS DR modules, and telematics boxes. So this product here is our longest standing and most commercialized product. So I'm going to skip over this one for the Living Labs examples. For Ride, this is an offshoot of it, a branch of our core technology, which goes into the micro-mobility platforms. So For ride software, we are really much embedded into the scooter software, e-bikes, and so on and so forth. We have been actually in contact with Living Labs prior to all of the scooter companies coming up. Alberta Transportation is a provincial government body, and then the city of Calgary, the Living Lab section back then, they gave us a letter of recommendation that should get us the right permits to test on Calgary roads. All right, so going into auto is our higher accuracy inertial plus perception-based positioning solutions. So of course, this example here is a delivery robot. You've probably seen it a lot around for like Amazon deliveries, so on and so forth. The next step would be fully autonomous driving. So it's accurate and reliable positioning for autonomy, all the way down from personal delivery devices to consumer retail vehicles. So it's essentially where people are hands-free and they just let the machine do what it needs to do. So how do we actually bring this all together? So positioning, there are a lot of positioning approaches for autonomous vehicles, or in that kind of space, is lane keeping, HD maps from 3D positioning, high quality, high accuracy GNSS, and then high quality, high accuracy inertial navigation systems and dead reckoning. There are a lot of solutions out there, but each and every one of them have their own weaknesses. So the whole benefit of sensor fusion is to bring everyone's weaknesses out of the picture and covering those weaknesses with another sensor's strength. For example, camera perception. Cameras are great, they are very reliable, but we're in Calgary, we have snow all the time. When camera lenses are covered by snow, your camera is essentially useless. So then there are all the other options such as radar and LiDAR that has penetrating ability that can penetrate through the snow and still read the surrounding areas. Oh, let me just bring up next one. Sorry. So then you can kind of see from those red lines, it kind of brings up everything and then does some geometry to bring it all together. So then how does Auto bring into this? We are the software company that brings in all of these sensor measurements, brings it together into a high accuracy positioning solution. So you can see from the far, that would be if you're far left, perception sensor background detections essentially makes a 3D map internally, as well as crowdsourcing information on the right. Other information from vehicle speed, GPS, GNSS, and then the IMU measurements from the MEMS. We have all of these sensor measurements. We bring it into Auto and then do a tight integration of all of these measurements for fused output, resulting in decimeter accuracy level positions. So why is decimeter level accuracy very important? When we're doing positioning solutions, if it really depends on the use case. If we're just navigating where am I right now, your phone's accuracy is probably 1 to 3 meters. So 1 to 3 meters is about this much. Not too bad if you're just tracking where you are, but you bring this approach to this accuracy to autonomous vehicles. This distance is the make or break between safe driving and a collision. So really, this is the benefit of our positioning software for Auto. So again, how does it relate back to Living Labs? Living Labs really helped us with getting the right permits to test on Calgary streets. Alberta Transportation is a provincial government body. So again, they gave us the letter of recommendations, gave us the right permits to and give us designated zones within the city to actually test out the software. All right. And then our indoor navigation solution, or not indoor location and services, what we call Venue. This is where we use magnetic field readings, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and of course, and UWB, which is ultra wideband, on top of our core inertial software. I highlighted magnetic because we really focus on magnetic survey, which is infrastructure free to infrastructure light. Magnetic is the magnetic field of our Earth. Everyone knows where north is, it's over there. However, everything that we build on top, or all of the furniture we have here, it actually obstructs this magnetic field in a very specific way. So then in this room, for example, north is that way, the magnetic field goes that way. However, this podium here, the chairs there, it actually bends the magnetic field in a very specific way, and it generates what we call a magnetic fingerprint. That's essentially what it looks like in this building. So, using the advantage of our magnetic fingerprints, we really are able to get a more accurate solution in offices, hotels, construction sites, factories, warehouses, hospitals, so on and so forth. So then the question is, we do have location services for indoor positioning. What's the benefit of it? Well, for GPS, we are indoor. We have no line of sight to satellites. So GPS is not really that great or will not get a position. Wi-Fi positioning was probably about 10 to 20 meters accuracy. Let me just go back to the chart. Yeah, that chart. Wi-Fi positioning actually is 50 to 30 meters accuracy, and also requires Wi-Fi routers throughout the building. Beacons as well, 3 to 10 meters accuracy. UWB, ultra wideband, is a technology with high accuracy, but requires extensive infrastructure. So magnetic is actually just a 1 to 3 meter limited infrastructure reading and measurement that we utilize. And no one can really take away the Earth's magnetic field, so it's everywhere. So how do we use venue positioning? So we use that 1 to 3 meters typical positioning accuracy for people, machines, assets. And we do this real-time positioning. This is really where Living Labs has helped us within Calgary, because Calgary assets include warehouses. We actually got into the Village Square Leisure Center, and we were actually offered several other buildings around the area. I wish I could provide more examples, but when there's public involved, you can't really take many videos and photos because we're trying to keep everyone's privacy as well. But for in the next, so then actually I actually went ahead of myself. For venue, how it works. So of course we have our core technology, and then we bring over other sensors for sensor fusion. I'm just gonna skip over this one because I did a high level. All right, so for example, the one example I am able to show is inside a City of Calgary warehouse. There's no public in this one, so I'm allowed that video. Let's see if it works. All right, so we are doing location tracking software using Venue. On the left side, it is on an Android device. On the right side is on an iPhone device. So this is commercialized off-the-shelf hardware. We just install our software. And we are able to keep track of our tester here, walking and navigating throughout the warehouse. This technology is only using the inertial sensors, the gyroscope, accelerometer, inside of the phone for what we call pedestrian dead reckoning, and combining it in sensor fusion with the magnetic field reading. So how are we getting magnetic field reading? It is just the magnetometer that is on your phone already. So that is the software that really utilizes commercially ready, consumer-ready sensors. And if they want to go into a higher accuracy, then of course the customers, they have the option to go into a higher end, higher accuracy sensor. Yeah, so I'm just gonna let this play out a little bit longer, but I think everyone here gets the gist that this person is going up and down the aisles. So then this is just the technology tracking a person. How we could apply this is we could apply this software or hardware onto a forklift, assets. If you are looking for a specific asset inside of this warehouse, put a tag on it or put something that's low cost, and we are able to keep inventory tracking, for example, inside this huge warehouse. Forklifts, you'll never lose your forklift again, and it will actually be tracked wherever it goes throughout the warehouse. All right, and I'm gonna move over. All right, so then how does our technology, our vision of trusted positioning bring it all together? You know, we have track, which is for commercial vehicles, you know, parking underground. That is a lot of where the benefit is when we have no GPS. Venue for indoor tracking, auto for the future of autonomous, either autonomous vehicles or autonomy in mowing, delivery services, so on and so forth. And then ride really solves that last mile problem with the scooters, the e-bikes. So as you can see, the vision of the positioning software really is citywide, touches every aspect of the city of tracking where we are. And then really, this is why we are a perfect candidate for working directly with Living Labs, because they are able to help us gain access to assets of the city, which, you know, one company itself would not be able to access. All right, any questions for TDK Trusted Positioning? Yes. Oh.
More even operationally, because this was one of our first Living Labs that was in an active operational space, and both at Village Square and at the warehouse. And just wondering if you noticed any difference between one working alongside or doing experiments alongside the public versus alongside city employees.
Yeah, absolutely. So city employees, they're more regulated. Let's put that, they have their schedules, they have their set schedule, they know they have a job to do. The public is very random. They can go anywhere, you have no control over them. The public as well, you can't tell the public what kind of device to use. You can tell the employees what kind of device to use. So to us, even though it is still chaotic, the public employees are a more controlled environment, the city employees are a more controlled environment, while the public is a very chaotic, random, uncontrolled variable. Yeah.
It's easier to keep the city employees informed of why you're there and what you're doing.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a question behind you as well.
Can you name 3 key advantages your technology has over competitors?
So first of all, let's go back to, oh, did I lose it? All right, let's go back to one of my beginning slides. Sorry, it was very much at the beginning. So our core technology for all of our products, the main advantage is the second bullet there, hardware agnostic. We allow customers to customize to their own system, own hardware. They can pick and choose. Their own system and software. One big advantage that we've seen in the recent years is a customer has already launched their hardware. They already brought out their phone. Consumers are buying their phone, their hardware. They have just purchased our software and done an over-the-air update because our technology is software-based. So that firmware update that your iOS firmware required you to download, same with Android, potentially our software was in that update. So we are able to reach a mass market with even bypassing the manufacturer's building stage. So that's number one for sure. Flexibility, of course. If there's a supply chains issues, of course, we saw during COVID, there was a lot of demand that went down for new products. However, there's always existing products, so that existing products that could just do a quick software update. So that's where, again, an advantage we saw with our software solution. Over-the-air updates really applied to an existing base, because the customers, our potential base is not only the new products, but the older, already rolled out products as well. and it's scalable and cost effective. Software is very scalable, copy and paste. Hardware is not as scalable. It really has a cost and benefit, but you know what? With software, copy and paste firmware, copied millions of times, hundreds of times, it's probably the exact same level of effort for the manufacturer to roll out. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
In the scooter, is your software is mainly for finding the scooter after it's being driven, or is it also used while it's being driving the scooter?
It can be for both. So the biggest weakness for scooters, or for GPS in general, is multipath. When you go into a downtown area, multipath can really degrade GPS position accuracy. That could be 20, 30 meters away, depending on how dense the city is. So that's why cities like Shanghai, New York, they really need to leverage different technologies other than GPS. So that's where the sensor fusion comes in for the scooters. On the other side, for the scooters, we are able to do context and dynamic detection. So if a scooter crashes or if it's unsafely used, this is where our IMU, the inertial measurement system, really comes in. We can really tell if this person is driving recklessly. For other use cases in other cities, for the scooters, they actually have allocated scooter parking zones. So then we were used as a software to actually detect if they parked properly before a user could return the scooter as well. Yeah. And
for knowing if you have the gyroscope activated too, knowing when it's on its side helps
exactly.
as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Any other questions? Open the floor.
Just wanted to ask, how big are these? So I saw a coin, but I couldn't work out what it was. So.
Yeah. The MEMS sensors, microscopic. Yeah, they're microscopic. So they are essentially what's on your phone already. It probably takes up, I guess, how big on it would take. It costs pennies to produce. So I think that gives you like the scale of the size it could be potentially. So it's microscopic. Yeah.
I asked because I saw the hospital application, and it occurred to me that if these were cheap and small, it could literally be a pin.
Yes.
So that it could be used in like an ultrasound or
Yeah,
something.
it is.
Because with the gyroscope, then
Yeah.
you not only know, but you know whether somebody's forward. So
Yeah.
it uses a fall sensor.
Absolutely. So our company is software-based, but we have reached out and one peak aspect of TDK, which is a hardware company, is that these microscopic MEMS sensors are in everything, absolutely everything already. So how do you know that your phone is in horizontal or landscape mode? That is actually a MEMS sensor telling you that. The fall detection, like you said, they're already in the old people's the necklaces. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, usually if the size is usually the supporting infrastructure. Like a GPS chip is usually much bigger, 10x bigger than an IMU sensor. That's also another reason why our core technology is based off of IMU and potentially use GPS as a supporting sensor as well. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I got a question behind you.
I just had a thought. Can your technology also be used in wildlife tracking?
Yes, it also depends on the use case, because for wildlife tracking, just like the previous presentation, GPS may be enough because wildlife is usually in a clear line of sight. It depends on what kind of wildlife I guess it is. Like for the birds, they're not usually in they are in the big open spaces, so they have a very clear line of sight to GPS satellites. So therefore, one of the biggest weaknesses of GPS don't apply there. Wildlife tracking, if you're tracking, bunnies that are living inside of downtown, that may be applicable for sure. Like we could, if you put tags on them, we can use the other sensor fusion solutions to actually see where they nest. Of course, for the INS solution, we'll need models to track the behaviors of the motion behaviors of that wildlife, but then that's where other sensors would fill in that gap for accuracy. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. And thanks for the presentation. I'm just going to pull this out of here. And, okay. And our last group there, the last presenter that I wanted to bring up was Wade from SAIT's Center for Innovation and Research in Unmanned Systems.
All right, thank you. Nice to see everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to chat. So my name is Wade Hawkins. I'm the research chair at the Center for Innovation and Research in Unmanned Systems, or CIRRUS, or your local neighborhood drone lab, I guess is another way to think about it. So I want to speak a little bit about our institute, kind of what we do, and some of our connections to living labs. So SAIT is one of the oldest institutes, academic institutes in Canada, actually. So Calgary's second oldest post-secondary institute and Canada's first publicly funded technical institute. So we offer career pathways, trades and technology training. So those would be the schools of transportation, construction, hospitality and tourism, and so on. We also have an applied research division focusing on applied research, so partnering with industry clients to solve research goals. And within the ARIS group, we also have a series of research areas. Mine is one being CIRRUS. And our focus is really on working with industry to support needs relating to autonomous systems or unmanned systems. In Canada, we use the term remotely piloted systems. It's just a generic term. And we try to focus on the integration into their workflow. So we do a lot of things. So our focus is on remotely piloted systems. So we probably 90% is on aerial-based systems. We do some terrestrial, so ground-based, and also some aquatic, and also some subsurface things in mining caves and so on. Lots of different sensors ranging from light detection and ranging to thermal, methane detection sensors, airborne ground penetrating radar. So pretty much anything that the client needs or would like to see, we can access it and then integrate that into our remotely piloted system. Analytical framework ranging from geographic information systems, remote sensing, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all those really interesting data science type things. High performance computing infrastructure, which is really required for the analytical side of things. Now, we're not focusing on just gathering a ton of data. We're trying to focus on gathering the right data. So when we go into the analytical environment, we're not processing, gigabytes and terabytes of data. All of that needs to be protected, so we do focus a lot of effort on our cybersecurity network and infrastructure, so ensuring that if we're working with a mining client, we're gathering data for their organization, that it's secure and we're not posing a risk or that data getting out. And then on the visualization side of things, focusing on digital twin development, so developing digital models to support visualization, so using augmented reality, virtual reality. So one example could be a wildfire project that we're working on where you actually build the environment that the firefighters may be moving into in the next summer, and having that ready so we can actually do some simulations if there is a fire, and you can look at different wind directions and different timber loading to support how the fires might react before it actually happens. A lot of our clients are starting to be really interested in the MRV, so that's the measurement, so like looking at developing a baseline or what's there today, reporting out on the results, and then the verification piece. So making sure that you can verify the data that's been captured. We also focus on quite a bit of beyond visual line of sight operations as well, so that's Jordan talked about that earlier. It's really the drone moving beyond kind of 500 meters. It's going beyond the sight of the operator. And so that does require a whole suite of additional things that you need to worry about. And then spelling mistake there, detect and avoid system. So when you're moving into beyond visual line of sight, you need to make sure that the drone has some sort of onboard detect and avoid system. It's still very much in its infancy, so there are some techniques like visual DAA, where there's a 360 camera on the drone. It's searching the airspace for objects. When it sees an object, it uses an AI algorithm to guess what that object is. There are also radar-based systems, and one of the more interesting one is an acoustic system where the drone actually has an onboard system to listen for sounds, and based on the sounds, it can start to do a detection as to what those are. The avoidance is still a challenge, so for the drone to actually take that information and avoid automatically, still very much in its infancy, but it's gaining in capabilities. So what we offer is applied research. I already spoke to that, so partnering with industry. We also are situated really nicely in the aerospace space because we do have other projects. So we have a remotely piloted aviation training center. So that's a picture of some of our folks with one of our drones. So these are drones that are beyond 25 kilograms. So that's a jet turbine running, which you see is a counter rotating intermission Flettner system. And it's running a turbine using Jet A fuel. So it'll operate for three and a half hours with approximately 120-pound payload. So it actually is much more of an endurance machine. And under the skids there, you can place any number of sensors underneath there. So it's getting almost to the point where it's starting to compete with piloted aircraft. We also have a 15-week RPAS certificate course. So that takes a student from no drone experience to getting the advanced license, learning about the importance of mapping and mission planning, through to some of the beyond visual line of sight capabilities. Okay. Then we also have what's called the Capstone Connector. So that's a group that focuses on bringing Capstone students in to give them experience in drone technology and survey instruments. So we have a great infrastructure of equipment, and that's the focus of that connector. So just to build capacity within programs. And then lastly, brand new, we're unveiling in September 2025, a 2-year RPAS diploma program, and that's through the School of Transportation. Plus we have the aircraft mechanic course over at the School of Transportation as well. So we're already in the aerospace industry, and the drone space just kind of complements all of that. These are some of the other research areas I spoke of briefly. So the benefit there is we have lots of capacity to leverage. We have all the schools on the right, and we can pull students from those programs. If we need someone to support some of the applied research, we can lean on the Advanced Digital Technology School. If I need to manufacture a part to integrate a sensor into my drone, we could work with our Center for Innovation and Research in Advanced Manufacturing Materials. So a really great hub of capabilities. And then what's super exciting about our space, that's a picture of our lab up there on the top, kind of the right-ish area. We have a dynamic workspace. It's all open air, kind of like this space. And we have lots of students working on a regular basis with us, so it makes for a really exciting environment. We also do foster professionalism. So if we're going to a site such as a tech mine site in southeastern BC, we need to make sure that our staff are operating professionally, and we also expect that of our students and also in our lab space. And we also have lots of great technical knowledge and remote field experience. And then on the student engagement side, we do offer 8-month work terms for our students and 4-month final project capstones. And that's just an example where a student group was working on one of our wildfire projects, and they built a dashboard that fused a bunch of different data feeds from weather, from Alberta wildfire, and it also incorporated some of our drone data into a very easy to use environment. And that was something that they get a really good experience with our clients, and we could incorporate that into the research project as we move through it. And many of these are multi-year projects. The pipeline is an important piece for us as well. So we are an academic institute. So we do have capstone projects, move to the practicum positions. We have full-time employment, so we'll often be able to hire one of our practicum students. So they would be with us for 8 months. We have an opportunity potentially to hire them as a full-time staff member, either as a technician, even moving up into a principal investigator, which is super exciting. And then the goal is to keep this pipeline moving. So at the end, hopefully one of our clients poaches or takes that person over, which is always challenging, but that's what we want. We want people to work through our system, then get hired by like a tech resources, and then we have to repeat the process, bring in more students and keep that rolling. So it's a really good environment. And we've got some metrics on there. So we've leveraged a number of different programs like construction, School of Business. We have a medical delivery project I'll speak to shortly. So we are starting to attract students from the School of Health and Public Safety. So we're trying to target all the schools in our institute. So just to demonstrate what we do, our focus is commercialization. So I'll just show a few slides on how we'd work with an industry partner. So we'd start with a scope of work, and the scope of work is what are the objectives? What do you want to satisfy? And we have a whole suite of drones. So thankfully, we've been very successful at acquiring funding from Canada Innovation Network or Foundation for Innovation, Prairies Canada, NSERC. So we've been able to secure a really great infrastructure. So we have a number of drones ranging from $600 up to that red one I showed you is at about $1 million price point. We have several of those. So we have a great drone infrastructure. We have lots of sensors ranging from a thermal sensor. The one on the left is multispectral. So if you want to do plant identification, plant stress, you can do that. The middle is ground penetrating radar from an airborne standpoint. So we can penetrate anywhere from 2 meters for City of Calgary underground infrastructure if they don't know where the water lines are, down to 110 meters if you're looking for, looking aquifer recharge, groundwater modeling, those types of things. The one second from the right is a sonar, so a dual echo sonar. So and I'll show a demo of that. The City of Calgary doesn't know the depth of their ponds, their storm ponds, or they don't want to put people in a boat to actually measure that. We can do that from a drone standpoint. And the one on the right is a LiDAR sensor, so light detection and ranging. So it'll give you a very accurate elevation of the ground and also the tops of the trees. Planning and operations, so that previous slide you saw a little bit of a safety piece. We do Work Safely, so we satisfy Work Safe Alberta, also Work Safe BC. We have our own internal safety procedures, plus we adopt the client's procedures as well. And we have lots of experience. And then lastly, the data analytics and decisions, or data analytics and decisions. So we focus on taking the data, building it into an environment where the client can actually use it. So actionable data, not just an SD card with a bunch of images. We actually bring it to an endpoint where they can actually leverage the knowledge into their decision-making process. Not going to focus on this, but this is kind of what we plan out for a mission for a client, right? All the way from planning in the office to the mission planning for wherever we're going to go on site. We execute the mission, focusing on actually operating the drone, making sure we're operating safely, making sure we're aware of the log files, ensuring that our pilots aren't operating for too long. Data management, so that's conversion, processing, automation, and integration. The visualization, so moving the data from the sensor to the data to the analytics. Building algorithms, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and then the visualization piece. And then the last one is really integrating it into the ecosystem of the client. So working with their team to integrate it as demonstrations to showcase what we've done, building out STPs or standard technical procedures to allow them to take ownership of it and start using it, and then training as well. We do not maintain or retain intellectual property. We give that over to the client. So we basically give everything over in a packaged environment. And we can't be deemed to be competing with industry. So we do these research projects, we satisfy or solve a question, and then we hopefully move on to the next question. And then they can either do it internally, adopt that process internally, or they can then hire out to a consultant. Okay, so we have to kind of be in fairly quick, usually 6 months to, depending on, like with some of our mining clients, we've had a 3 to 4 year project, and we just keep changing the project. So going from thermal to another sensor, which is great. These are the standard technical procedures. And just as an interesting thing, we do have a few folks that are Spanish speaking, so we produce the technical procedures in English and in Spanish. And in this case, it was great because the client actually had Spanish or operations in Spanish-speaking countries. And then as important with drones, we need to be cognizant of regulations. So we need to make sure we're doing things properly and within the regulatory environment. So we have a lot of great collaboration with Transport Canada. We will actually be meeting with them in Ottawa in the next few weeks to make sure that we're following the regulations, but also helping them to move the regulations forward. So providing them with data, working with them, having them in our lab to actually participate in some collaborative work. Also, we're looking at researching additional detect and avoid systems, which is going to help us in our beyond visual line of sight operation. And then lastly, it's always a kind of a crawl, walk, run phase where we are doing visual. We're doing extended visual line of sight, which is using spotters along certain pipeline right-of-ways, for example. but we're also operating beyond visual line of sight. And it does require a lot more rigor, and you need what's called crew management. So if your drone is 40 kilometers away and your operator can't see it and something happens, you need to make sure that there's no mistakes to bring that drone back safely if there is an issue. Transitioning to kind of the Living Labs and support from Living Labs, and in general the support in Calgary. We heard about that earlier in the panel and how supportive Calgary is. I think I echo those words. So we do leverage the Shepherd RPAS drone flying area quite heavily. I don't have the stats like Jordan mentioned, but we use it quite heavily, and that's just the map from the city of Calgary. It's a great spot, and I think it's utilized fairly heavily, and it's a really big win for Calgary to have this kind of environment in the city. We also have a very strong aviation and RPAS ecosystem in Calgary. So lots of innovation happening, lots of excitement. And more importantly, the next point is it's a lot of collaboration. There's not a lot of competition. People aren't worried about if you're talking to them, they're going to take your idea. There's more than enough work to go around. So it's actually a very collaborative environment. And then obviously the support from Transport Canada is huge. So that's a big, and I'll put a plug in. That collaboration thing, there is the Aerial Evolution Conference happening in Ottawa this year. So I know Jordan is a big player in that. So that's a great event where you bring together the drone people across Canada to come together to talk about drone technology, regulations, and pushing it forward. So I'm going to speak to a few projects that, just to finish off with, that we've been working on. Some are City of Calgary projects, others are not, but they're all kind of focused on more of an urban slant. First one is looking at bathymetry and flood to support, and flood mitigation, really to support each of them, using airborne GPR and sonar. So the one on the left is the Bow River, the one on the right, stormwater ponds down by Fish Creek Park. And the idea was both are good tools. The one on the left is our Swiss drone, so it's a larger machine, obviously. The one in the middle is a DJI, and then these are the airborne GPR sensors. So this is just an example of mounting it to the smaller system. We'll typically use the smaller drone as an initial test, and then once we have our procedures down, then we'll move into the larger machine for longer duration. And this is an example of one of the projects that we started with. This is in partnership with the University of Alberta and Siksika First Nation. So looking at using airborne GPR to determine underground anomalies. We transitioned that to more of a bathymetric assessment. And I'm not going to pretend to be a geoscientist. One of the things we do at the lab is we don't try to do all the processing on our own. So if we're dealing with ground penetrating radar data, we would bring in an expert or geophysicist to actually do the processing to ensure that we're not oversimplifying the process. So he would actually go through the filtering. He does what he calls his magic, removing surface and internal multiples, converts the data from data recorded in time to depth, and then we actually built an algorithm to automatically detect the bottom of the river. And so here's an example of the one flight line. That's a profile on the left. And then what we saw was the algorithm actually automatically picked the strongest signal, so we can then generate a bottom structure map, so looking at the bottom of the river system. The reason that was important was because with the sonar, so that's the sonar, it's actually slung from the drone, it detects two returns. So it sends a pulse down and it returns 2 times. So in theory, it should get the bottom of the water and it should get any sediment levels. But the problem is if you have a sludgy or really thick sediment, are you actually getting the true bottom of the pond? The GPR, we're pretty confident we're going to get that true bottom because it's quite a contrast between the bottom versus the ground. The sonar, we're a little bit cautious. So that was kind of, we were doing a kind of a head-to-head assessment. And here's an example of, in the city of Calgary, our crew is on the left there. You'll see the drone dips that sensor just below the water, about 13 centimeters below. And then it actually pulls that sonar along just the surface of the water, and it'll give you the depth. If you're dealing with a 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer water body, it's going to take a lot of time, right? So what we've done is looking at grasshopper approaches. So instead of dragging it where you might have some debris, lifting it up and dropping it every 20 meters or every 40 meters, and then interpolating the known based on the unknown based on the known. So it really goes back to that how much data is enough? Is that estimate good enough, or do they need to know the contours of that water body? So lots of different approaches. We also do quite a bit of methane detection and quantification. So that's just a map showing, it was actually a known release point. We were just doing some calibration of our sensor. And then we looked at doing things like back trajectory. So looking at the methane dispersion based on the wind speed and direction. So, and in the city of Calgary, I mean, there is methane, you know, manhole covers, those types of things. Our focus is mainly on mining at this point in time, but this could be something that would be applicable to the city of Calgary. It is a very challenging thing to assess because you have a lot of factors, you know, from your methane, your wind speed, your temperature, time of day, all those types of things. And then I'll finish off with just one of our other projects. So this is our medical delivery project. It's been going since just before COVID. We actually started this mission just before COVID hit. It was actually 2 months prior to kind of the lockdown. And it's Dr. Andy Kirkpatrick, Stoney Nakoda Nation. So that's Minitini or Morley, Bighorn, and Eden Valley, just west of Calgary. Jessa McKee is the project manager through the telementoring network, myself, and the Stoney Nation community. And we also have interesting partnerships all the way through to Alberta Health Services and World Health Organization. And what we're trying to do is demonstrate all the different systems. So this is our big drone in flight out at Morley. We're not expecting anybody who operationalizes this to go and spend $1 million on a drone, right? We're demonstrating what this kind of drone can do versus the smallest drone. And this is just an example of the flight out at Morley. And it is running, as I said, Jet A fuel. So there's our fuel canister filling up the drone. And so some of the successes that we've had is we have been able to deliver PPE. That was during COVID. Pretty easy. You just put it in a payload container. We have a number of different size payload containers, and you deliver it. And we went through the process of the communication to ensure that the drone lands at a remote site safely. Then we went and ran tests of COVID test kit fidelity. So the idea was we had COVID test kits in the lab as a control. We sent the COVID test kits out to community to have administered and then returned to the lab. And we analyzed, or the lab analyzed, if there was any degradation to the signal. Showcased that there was no signal degradation. So in theory, we could send COVID test kits to community, keep the Indigenous members safe in their houses, get the tests administered, bring them back to the lab, and then call them to let them know if they're positive or not. We got written up in the American Journal of Infection Control, which was great. Technical colleges aren't really known for publishing, so that was kind of a big win for us and a really great project. And that's since transitioned to our communication with remote mentors. So you've probably been hearing a lot of news about drone delivery. You know, Walmart comes in heavy, and Amazon, they come in, hire up a bunch of people, and then they tend to kind of disappear fairly quietly because it's just not really there yet. We've been focusing more on that remote mentor piece. So what we've done is we successfully sent Stop the Bleed kit. So it's a series of gauze, clamp, and tourniquet. In the wintertime, because we're operating 4 seasons, we drop the payload container to a simulated patient 30 meters above ground. He or she, in this case, she takes the container, she'll open it up. You'll see there'll be a tripod. She sticks her phone on the tripod so she's hands-free. And then the physician is on the other side of the Zoom client. So he or she is telementoring or teaching her how to self-administer the 3 kit items. So the gauze, the clamp, and the tourniquet. And that's Dr. John Connolly in the middle. He's one of the infectious disease docs in Calgary holding the arms. And she's actually listening to the doc on video using the skin clamp. Never used the skin clamp before. So we've refined the procedures on how to do that quickly. We've also done ultrasound. So my colleague in the frame there never used an ultrasound. We sent the ultrasound to the remote location. He opened up the payload container, followed the instructions from the doctor, and was able to complete a full ultrasound scan of 3 organs. And Journal of Digital Imaging wrote us up for that test, which again was a great success story. And then just to finish off with, our current and last, for now, project is respiratory distress. So if you're dealing with collapsed lung, you can't breathe, you're in a remote access site, remote job site, we are building a payload container to basically answer the question. If you are in respiratory distress, if you're dealing with a collapsed lung because you got impaled off of a horse or a bike or you're working, what would you be prepared to do? Would you be prepared to self-administer this system? And I'll just run this quick video. So this is one example of one of our drones that we are doing, more of a simulation just to test the payload drop. So what he's doing, he's actually doing a chest tube intubation on who we call Sherwood, because it's actually a little mannequin built out of Sherwood hockey sticks. But he's following instructions from the physician on how to do a chest tube intubation. The physicians are 100% confident that if you're dealing with this situation on your own, you'd be prepared to do a self-administration of a chest tube. So the idea is to build a kit that allows you to do all those items at the top. That's all in a kit. So the first thing is oxygen saturation. So you stick a Bluetooth-enabled oxygen sat on your finger. The doctor manages the connection. Then you do respiration. So you blow into a respiration system, blood pressure cuff, and then ultrasound of your lung. Once you've gone through those 4 items, we did that in 9 minutes. You do a full chest tube intubation. It's all in the payload kit, from the sterilization to the cutting to the insertion. 11 minutes to do that once the payload was delivered, which is awesome. And then our next stage is to take those items, move them into colored bags. But if someone is colorblind, using labels, braille, and LED lighting if it's a nighttime scenario. So building a fully accessible bag that can then be delivered to the patient in need. So just to finish off with, Calgary's a great place to support new, innovative, and disruptive technology, and this is very much disruptive technology. We've engaged with the School of Health and Public Safety on this project as well, so they're a player in this, as well as in addition to Foothills Hospital and a number of others. And again, working with Ariam and others, I think it's a great place to be, and it's a super exciting space to be in with Living Labs and with all the clients that we work with. So thanks. Questions?
In your collaboration with industry and corporations, and you mentioned that you, at the end of the project, you package up the data, the IP, and deliver it back. Are you able to anonymize any of the data so that you can analyze lessons learned and then take that piece of data into a larger data set and then analyze it for future projects, for future trends, and any other key indicators?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, we do. So as part of the IP transition, we do identify the IP that we would need to retain in order to, because some of the stuff we're doing is we want to amplify it for other companies, right? We want to just, if we do something for company X, we want to be able to do that for company Y and so on. So yeah, we have that conversation early in the stage to make sure that there's no miscommunication, and we do extract some of the learnings from each company to demonstrate the capabilities and move that forward for the next company. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks to everybody who did a presentation this afternoon. I'll have you guys up in a minute. Just we're going to do a little panel conversation about Living Labs. But I just wanted to kind of summarize some of the things that we heard today in relation to the work that these guys are doing. You know, I think one of the things that we talk about at WAVE, or we've been trying to talk about, is making sure that the work that we're doing from an innovation point of view is not just for the purpose of like innovation and progress alone, but that it's in service of the community, the land, the people that we're here to serve. And I think each and every one of these companies are great examples of that. You know, we've got Zero Sound working on environmental management and protecting those around certain types of noise levels in a way that is protective. You've got wildlife protection being done by Ariam Analytics with their Robird. You've got TDK helping to enhance safety of workers and different and efficiency, but not only that, also making that stuff accessible to all to grab by making it affordable. And, SAIT is building capacity for future innovators in the city, but they're also doing it in a way that's actually giving back to the community from some of those projects that you're talking about. So I just wanted to mention how great it was to hear from each and every one of you and the type of work that you're doing. And I was hoping we could have you guys up just to have a little conversation. So thanks everybody for joining today and giving us an overview of some of the work that you guys are doing. I guess we've already gotten an introduction for each of you and the work that you're doing and everything like that. So I thought instead I would jump right into the process of when you guys are doing product development, because there's always this talk about innovation, but innovation kind of is a process that, it's not just an idea that ends up being a product right away. There's a whole entire process of iteration and experimentation that has to happen. And so I guess I wanted to just hear from each of you what that process looks like and the importance of kind of experimentation and that capacity within the work that you do. So I don't know who wants to start with that. Sure.
I think our focus is not necessarily on failure, but failure is okay, and making sure that you're jumping in, you're not wasting any time because the space is moving very, very quickly. But don't be afraid to go full on. Failure is okay, and then more importantly, learning from those early failures to apply to the next iteration of the innovation. I think that would be what I would add.
Just to add on that, what's the baseline for the innovation? What do we need versus what does the group want? And dealing with engineers and otherwise, for those engineers in the room, sorry, but there's good enough isn't a four-letter word in a lot of cases. That's all we need, so we don't need the Ferrari to win a go-kart race kind of thing. So that slow incremental innovation, we're innovating every day because it's brand new, but that's okay. Here's our baseline and put it in the parking lot of what we want versus what we need, and we have to remind ourselves of that constantly.
I guess first off, it all starts off with theory, right? Pen and paper never really fits reality. So it's this experimentation that really brings the whole picture together. We find our random variables from the pen and paper, and those are the hard problems to solve. It's the random stuff that we couldn't have guessed. That's the hard part.
And I think, the whole concept, like we said, fail fast, fail forward. The whole idea of don't letting great get in the way of good. Like there's reason that those are colloquialisms. There's reasons they get said because we've all lived them. And I think the other piece too that's important is at some point you need to make sure you're coming up out of your own circle going, we think this is good enough, but what does the market want? What are they willing to look at? So when you're looking at those iterative steps in that rapid development, is it really providing value or is it just something cool and neat that we ourselves thought was fantastic? So it's always making sure you're looking outside your own bubble as well.
And so I'm curious about that. Like, how do you look outside of your own bubble when you're doing those kind of, like, what are the methods that you would use to ensure that you're not just testing with yourself and going, yeah, that looks good, but going beyond that?
For us, it's a couple of ways. Number one, again, on paper versus benchmarking versus out in the field. That's your first series of steps. So that does it actually work out there is step number one. And then, we're fortunate enough that we're our own client. So we then put it in the hands of our pilots and go, okay, is this actually working? Did that actually work? Or is that really going to provide value? And then lastly, we also do a lot of market and product discovery. So we have ambassador clients, so we're using them as okay, are these the features that you want to see? Where does the value lie? So it kind of goes along every step of the entire life cycle.
Well, you guys can, if anybody has anything else to add.
I think our focus is getting out of our comfort range, I guess, not only moving into different application areas and different sectors, but also reaching out to different events to network, right? And just understanding what's out there, who are the players in the game, both locally and also on the eastern side of Canada, right? Getting into the territories as well. So looking at what else is out there and who are the players out there, and trying to collaborate as much as we can and learn. And then even moving into the European space with some of the granting agencies that are offering, like the Horizon Pillar 2, right? Some of those opportunities and trying to take what we're doing in Canada and impact a bigger footprint across the world.
And so I know all of you kind of touched a little bit on your Living Labs experience, but it'd be great to just hear from each of you maybe a little bit more about that Living Labs experience and what you maybe went into it thinking that you would learn, but maybe if there was anything new that you came out of it learning or any new discoveries that you made during that process or anything in relation to that in the Living Labs. I don't know if anyone wants to start.
For us, we use Living Labs almost daily. We do a lot of infrastructure and testing out in fields or otherwise that, depending on the use case, we certainly just have to go out and test it. So from a Living Lab, just the access to that, forgiveness versus permission, it's just a lot easier now doing it officially through Living Labs, but it's from that perspective, I wouldn't say necessarily learnings, it's the exposure to other areas within the city, other needs and client needs, so to say. So that's from our perspective.
I'll speak to opportunities. It's great to have the kind of the drone test area, but it's actually brought people to us because they see that not only do we have foremost in Southern Alberta for beyond visual line of sight testing, but they also see that there's dedicated airspace in Calgary to do some testing. So they said, well, this is a great opportunity to partner with you. You have airspace kind of in Calgary or an area to fly in Calgary that's 20 minutes from our institute. And that's actually brought on some additional partnership opportunities, which has been a surprise.
For us, the Living Labs has really given us access to the people, the profile, I heard profile that really matters. We are a group of engineers, but engineers are not the warehouse workers. The warehouse workers is what we care about and what they do. So it really gives us access to what they do, what they don't like to do, and what they can't do, which is very important for any product.
Yeah, and the network, the exposure through Living Labs into platform, into what happens in the city, even just listening to presentations today, it's like, wait a minute, I didn't realize you were doing that. We need to talk. That is a hidden gem of everything that being a partner and using this has been incredibly helpful on top of just access to the sites, access to potential clients, access to potential collaborators that we hadn't even realized were doing similar things. Those are the added values on top of what we've already talked about, which, that's just the start.
Have you guys learned anything new or unexpected when you were doing, when you moved from a controlled environment out to something like a Living Lab environment? Were there any unexpected new things that you guys learned in those testing environments?
We fail in a new way.
Yeah.
We fail in a new way every day.
Yay.
If I'm being honest. I mean, just that exposure out there, understanding how your code change here, all of a sudden, why is the bird not turning left? And, oh, wait, didn't realize that stack piece. Plus, the fortunate part is the weather in Calgary. We've all heard the adage. I'm not going to say it again. But that variability is actually incredibly critical for field testing. So just that alone, having a safe place to fail has been important. So, yeah, we've realized different birds have attacked us while we're out there, different ways in how our profiles in launching and landing have had to change. Even driving forward, more of the automation and ease of use has been we just went through a massive upgrade that has decreased the complexity of flight by about 50%. And all of that was tested there, but it's taken about 3 months because the first time we were like, this should work great, and it smashed right into the ground. So every day it's like that.
Yeah, where have we failed? It's always been the random variables. Building X is always different from building Y. Even if it's cookie cutter from building X or building A to building C, you know what? People do things differently in building A than building B. People are chaotic, and if my products are tracking people, we have to adjust to chaos.
I think ours is more, nothing surprising. It's just we've really built, our team builds that confidence, because when we're at the site in Calgary, it's a fairly consistent, calm environment. So we're able to test all the things that we need to do at site, because when you get at site and you're dealing with lots of different variables that you may not be able to control and you're not even aware of when you get there, at least you could focus on or I shouldn't use the term perfecting, but being comfortable with what it is that we're trying to use and leverage. And then we're just focusing on those other variables. So I think that confidence that it gives us is huge to be able to reduce the risk when we are at an operational site with the client watching.
And for us, nothing beats being on site in the real. We test our knowns and then we learn about the unknowns pretty quickly. And that, again, live and real and in a de facto client site, that's where the true innovation happens and the learnings happen. And that's what it affords from this access.
And so for yours, Norm, because we've seen you kind of do a few different tests in different kind of environments, and I think you've changed some of the variables in order to kind of test the breadth of what you've been able to do. So have you found something kind of different and new each time you expand what you're testing in, or?
Yeah, constantly. And it's just a little background. One of our systems is 2 of those panels, so we can deploy them in an array, multiple panels to cover a big area, or do them in series, so you knock noise down like a valve if it's really loud. So those are incredibly complex environments, and sound is always changing. It's not the constant speed of sound. Wind, temperature, pressure all impact these things. So yeah, that's part of what we do on that daily basis, why we need the access to these sites where it's not invasive by any stretch, but people actually it's been interesting, people just coming around to ask about it, but it's a very interesting series of tests that continue our learning and innovation.
And so, yeah, in relation to that testing piece and everything, those unknowns and everything, I think both yourself and Kyle, probably more so than when you're on the drone site and everything like that, have had a bit more interaction probably with the public and talking to them when testing and everything like that. Have you gained any additional kind of insight into how your product works, or any questions that might come up with those by being out in the public domain?
No, well, not insights, but people just want it. Can I get something for my husband or my wife, or to get them to stop snoring? Those kind of things. They want it deployed. Yeah, that would be a good one, wouldn't it? They want this deployed and they're excited about it. It's always good to get that feedback. We know it, but it's also helpful to confirm that you're not in your own head about how great you are.
For location tracking purposes, that in itself is pretty controversial. There are different public opinions on privacy, security, so on and so forth. So even in that industry, even though our living labs is quite self-contained, once you work with the public in any sort of way, there will be either people for your technology, against your technology. They'll be either very noisy or not nosy, and then they'll disrupt your work, or they leave you alone and they don't disrupt your work. Like, you get the whole spectrum, and Living Labs really kind of exposed us to that, especially working with a private sector and a public sector. Completely different experiences, requirements. Yeah, just the picture is very different.
Awesome. And so I guess we talked a little bit before you guys got on. We were talking a bit about the city's innovation ecosystem and everything. But I wanted to hear from you guys. I know there's been a few things that have gone on in the city to kind of help with build the technology innovation system or ecosystem. But I wondered what you thought the city needed more of in order to better support, or if you think there's something that city needs in order to build out and support innovation within the city.
Exposure of programs like Living Labs, for sure. Our research and development were very semi or mature before we actually partnered with the Living Labs. And it would have been very useful to have this program early on in our research and development, for sure.
I was going to send that to the council.
Yeah.
Yeah, I resonate with that absolutely, and I think, but one of the things that happens too is you have a lot of innovation, you have a lot of drive in companies in Calgary that don't even consider themselves part of the tech space. So more networking, more getting that out there, not just startups, but some of the existing companies out there. I mean, some of the major energy companies here have some of the most innovation and most data and technology that we don't even realize. And really, it's being able to connect mature companies, it's being able to connect startups and some of those larger conglomerates. That this is where Calgary really resonates, and this is where the cool stuff happens, is when you start to combine those ideas and just get to talk.
So that integration of all the different kinds of technologies and ideas, more opportunity for that? Yeah.
I would maybe add, I don't think it's the best kept secret. I think the word is getting out there, but I think continuing that mission to let people know locally and also across Canada that Calgary is this great incubator, this great hub for innovation research in many areas, many sectors, and across many domains. I think that's the key. And I was just in Montreal at a conference, and people are hearing about the aerospace industry in Calgary and what's happening in Calgary from the artificial intelligence side of things. So it's work, and Calgary's getting quite a reputation even out east, which is great to see.
And from a startup perspective, getting that valley of death from your product is almost there to actually getting revenue, and otherwise it's programs like the Living Labs that help you start to make that leap, which is the toughest thing. So that we need more of in the city, and more support around getting someone to a product stage, whether that's software, hardware, or otherwise. That isn't a small leap. That is a giant leap. Funding is incredibly difficult. After you have a few million in revenue, guess what? Funding's pretty easy. But that is a continuous need, and from this ecosystem, we need to be better from a city perspective, from a provincial perspective, and a Canadian perspective to help groups make that leap. And, well, that's where most die, frankly.
We need to see how we could get to, even before we get to government as first customer, but government as a partner, and say, hey, your technology, we really see the civic value in it. We need to invest as a partner. Or we see that this could be a great addition to our recreation facilities. How do we become a partner? I don't know how that will happen. I think there's procurement issues with some of that, but I think it's a really exciting idea. How do we unlock the corporate potential by becoming a partner?
Well, I think just to get to your point, just to add to that, that valley of death's different for every company, but commercialization doesn't start with your first sale. It could be your 10th or your 100th or your 1000th, because scale up is half that battle. And you're right, there is a gap between startup on a concept and an idea versus your first few million in sales. There's a period in there where people are like, nope, your commercialized can't help, but you're not making enough for anyone else large enough to look at that. So the partnerships and the collaboration, you're absolutely right. And we know that procurement can be a challenge, but we have to start looking at this differently. And it's the ecosystem around. Government loves to say, well, we don't pick winners and losers. But the reality is no, we have fantastic technology in this city that oftentimes goes away or goes elsewhere because we're not supporting it in that nurtured phase until they get big enough to be sustaining and looking at that growth. And that's been a constant struggle, not only for us, but we've seen time and time again. And so, looking at the government as a partner in those growth phases, introducing to some of their partnerships, looking at it not just from a direct funding perspective, but more of an opportunity for commercialization perspective. I think that's something that we as a city and as a community need to really emphasize over the next couple of years.
I guess my last question before I kind of let the audience ask a few questions is what is your vision of the future for Calgary's innovation ecosystem, and how do you plan to achieve that? Now, you don't have to answer both questions if you don't have a plan in your head, but I think that sounds like too much pressure for me personally. But if you do have a plan, love to hear it.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Just that exposure that, the Living Labs program is not venture capitalism. Living Labs does not expect anything in return. They are purely based on allowing companies like us just experiment, whether it passes, fails, does not matter to the city of Calgary. And that kind of opportunity is rare for any company to actually get access to. When the companies partner up with other companies, there's always some sort of return on investments. But with the city of Calgary, it's feel free to use our assets, and you know what? Pass or fail, it's a success to Calgary. Yeah.
Being an academic research organization always focused on funding, I would say the vision is, in integrating our work into the city of Calgary to support, civic betterment, and having that long-term strategy and plan where there's some core funding that we can start looking at really improving the city of Calgary from I'll stick to the drone space, but from utilization of drone technology and sensors and various applications to support just better infrastructure management to all kinds of factors. So.
And just from a macro level, it's money, the opportunity to do is in a lot of cases better than money. And so more infrastructure around it, more ideas on how we can, government isn't the answer, but they can provide the framework where we can play, where we can thrive. And that's would be from a high level do good plan perspective, but it's more than lip service because there's a lot of ideas that would just come out of conversations like we're having now that we could do more of. And if people are empowered with, it's local. Why the hell do we have to go to the States to sell this when we've got a client in our backyard? Why did we have to go to Chile to deploy something that we can deploy here? Now, it helps, and customer is a customer, so that works. But we can be better at supporting our local business, and that's what we need to do more of. And that would be, and be proud of it. Don't be Canadian and sheepish. Sing it from the rooftops.
When I think the city's in that unique place where not only can they reduce those barriers to opportunity by helping support with things like Living Labs, but when you look at the entire ecosystem, being able to pull together things like Living Labs, like Platform Calgary, like what's happening in the small startup space, combining that with the city's partners and those major companies and industries that are in this city, combined with their own civic responsibilities and their own industrial opportunities, if you can become the connector of every aspect of innovation and tech development, from the concept of seed capital or an idea generation all the way through to full deployment and support of international opportunity. The city is both the government, they're a potential client, they're an investment partner, but more than anything, they're a networking opportunity. And it's how do you bolt all those pieces together to give those chances to grow? And I think looking at plans beyond Living Labs and for tech in Calgary, that's something that we all as a community need to look at how we put the pieces together.
That's awesome. No, that sounds like lots of opportunities to connect, helping people find funding and everything like that, connecting people to other businesses that might be able to help. Yeah, I think these are all very big parts of work that's being done currently, and then more work that needs to be done in order to really foster some of these, startup companies, so that we don't lose anybody that's doing the work right here, so that we can keep you here. Now I wanted to see if anybody had any questions for the panel. I'll just go up and move this around. Okay. Oh. Sure.
Just talking about the how. There's a model out there known as challenges that some governments piece together, and it's really trying to identify the big hairy problem and then gathering people together to solve it. Question I have for you guys, total opinion question. If you were presented with a challenge, looking at your product development roadmap, would you be hesitant to participate because might take you down a rabbit hole that your business doesn't totally align with? Or would you go for it? And I know without a concrete example, it's kind of hard to answer, but just curious on your thought on that.
Yes. From our perspective, yes. So much of the development on these challenges spills over into our specific use cases anyway. So if that challenge has a financial element to it or whatever, look at it as paid R&D. It's not going to go to waste, and we should be. I would say no if we couldn't apply it to our focus areas. But our focus areas are fairly broad, and it would be a fairly quick yes to that.
Oh, I'll say yes. I mean, we'd have to obviously assess resources, but we focus on what we could do like now, real time, and then looking at charting the path a year or 2 years down the line. So depending on the priorities, we would for sure encourage that.
For sure, challenges are the reasons why we all here have a job. Just by the nature of my product, my technology is sensor fusion, where there's weakness in one sensor, another sensor will pick up that weakness from its strength. And then sensor fusion is more about covering each other's weaknesses. There is no one size fits all. So then that is why we take up the challenge, and then we see if it is within the scope of our technology. If it is not within the scope of our technology, that just opens another gateway to a new technology to come in.
And I think, yeah, the answer is always yes. But the challenge you have on that too is, and we get this every day, there's 1,000 new ideas. So when do you need to park them? And the answer is not, sorry, no, we're not accepting any new challenges right now. It's okay, how does that challenge fit? Where does it align with our development or potentially new technologies? But then more importantly, how do you prioritize it? Is it close to where you're going now? Or is the opportunity so massive that you'd be remiss not to? Or is it a fantastic idea, but it might need to be just delayed until you get a few other pieces off. So it's always, yes, you always want to consider. You just have to have an evaluation criteria of when is it, we don't call it shelved, but we call it just put in the bucket for tomorrow versus, like you said, if it's completely not aligned with your growth from there.
We were just talking about this just during break. So the city has started developing industry challenges because, again, unless that city decision maker, that person with budget, is at a trade show and they see exactly what they want, we've got procurement rules. We can't just do, right, sole sourcing on big products. But we also don't know what else is out there, especially with emerging tech. So, for example, if Parks Department wanted to better understand how technology could help improve tree health, right? How can we improve the health of the canopy using technology? We don't know what's out there. We're not at a trade show. We can't go directly to one company. So we can post that through our Ariba, through our regular purchasing portal that the whole province uses, all the municipal governments. So hopefully companies will be monitoring it, but we can also let supply or our procurement department know, hey, here's 4 companies that we've seen it at trade shows or in the community that are doing this. And then we can say, hey, we want to pilot some of these. Show us what you have. We want to pilot them for 6 months. And then, it'll be live for 3 weeks. Then we might get 10 companies apply. We can say, we're going to pilot these 3 vendors. The vendors can come into a place like this, work with the Parks Department, work with us on, getting access to any city data, or, we get to test drive, but we also get to iterate during that phase. So, hey, we like this product and how it works with our LoRaWAN or our 5G network, but we think the dashboard would be better served if we could monitor carbon footprint, or we could monitor water usage. Okay, so then we can tweak that during the experimentation phase, which is kind of a bonus. It does give you scope creep on your product, right? It does, but it allows us to say, okay, at the end of the 6 months, the city makes a really informed RFP. I really like this from vendor A. I really like this from vendor B, and I'm going to add this piece from vendor C, and we're going to build this really robust RFP. Then it's up to industry again to respond, right? But they've had that chance to prove that their network or their tools work with our city system, that they're intuitive, that city skill set matches, city network matches, security matches. And you get that, it's almost like a living lab. You get that iteration phase with our engineers or our parks crew. So we're there. I would expect to see those coming in the next month and going forward as we just get used to having this space to really work on that with. So join the platform. It's Ariba, right? Yeah.
Amongst the four panelists, now that you have been introduced to each other, are there any ground level discussions taking place on any collaborative opportunities?
Are there any, or could there be any? Because we haven't had a chance to talk too much yet. However, the answer is yes. I mean, I talked to Wade in the break and said, okay, we didn't realize you were working with GPR and bathymetric sensors. We need to talk. Fantastic ideas with what you're doing and with some of our clients on sound canceling that I think there's, even if it's not something we would leverage ourselves, there's opportunity with our clients to look at exposure. And we live in the GNSS GPS world now. Since we're aerial, it's a little bit different, but there's always technology share and future opportunities. So for me, I mean, in each of those presentations, there was at least 2 or 3 things where I'm like, I have notes on my phone, actually. It's like, we need to talk about this. So the answer is yes. And that ecosystem, that community, the sharing is what causes that to be able to happen.
Absolutely. For collaboration, absolutely. For sensor fusion, especially, when you go into drones, the drones use case was actually both areas, they are very big open spaces out in the wildlife. What if the next step is bringing it into the city? There are so many challenges from drones inside of the city compared to outside. And then this is where sensor fusion from either software or even extra hardware can actually mitigate the problems that occur inside of a city compared to out in the wild.
And as I mentioned during the session, our infrastructure, we're in the $6-7 million range of our infrastructure supported through government funding. So that's one of our goals, is to engage industry, like folks like yourselves, and basically provide access to our infrastructure, our drones, our sensors, our expertise, and try to help build capacity within the commercial industry.
And whether direct or not, it's a crossover of clients, as you mentioned, because there's people come to us about wildlife corridors. So obviously, there's the spillover, and I refer to our clients to other people, whether it's a direct collaboration or not. That's just how the world works, or how it should work. So things like this, going to the right conferences, where you taking on a trade mission, the relationships that you get with the local tech community, and let's not overuse tech, the business community, everything's tech. So those are the important elements, and that's where just the knowledge base of what's going over. Okay, now I know what everyone is doing, then it's the referral.
So I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for being with us this afternoon. I thought I had a pretty good sense of what everybody was doing in this group, and I learned loads. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come and share what you're doing. And thank you, everybody, for your questions. And we'll hopefully see what you're doing in the next year or so. Very exciting. So, thanks.